One moment, please. Okay, meeting is being recorded.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is so great to see you in person. Yay! Let's go. And with that, I'd like to call this regular meeting of July 1st, 2021 of the Historic Resource Commission to order at 4:35 p.m. Would everybody please stand and place your hand over your heart, and Commissioner Rush will lead us in the pledge.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, place your right hand over your heart and follow me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the secretary please call the roll?
Yes, Commissioner Carpenter,
yes.
Commissioner Harvey,
Present.
Commissioner Marashi,
Here.
Commissioner Schiff, Commissioner Kenya Sarmiento,
Here.
Commissioner Frazier, Commissioner McLaughlin,
Here.
Vice Chair Rush,
Present.
Chair Christie.
Here.
Chair, you do have a quorum, and for the record, Commissioner Schiff did report his absence today, and Commissioner Kenya Sarmiento is participating in this meeting via Zoom.
Thank you so much, Madam Secretary. Okay, as of July 1st, 2021, members of the public may attend Historic Resource Commission meetings in person or virtually via Zoom. I now invite the Commission Secretary to describe the ways the public can access and participate in this meeting. Madam
Thank you.
Secretary.
This meeting is being live streamed via our portal at www.santa-ana.prime.gov/public/portal and to YouTube at youtube.com/city-of-santa-ana-videos/live. If you would like to provide a public comment via Zoom, you may do so in one of the following ways. Join the meeting via Zoom, enter meeting ID 944-874-70095. When the item that you would like to comment on is being discussed, select the hand icon to let us know you would like to speak. You will be called upon by the name you enter. You can also call 669-900-9128. Enter meeting ID 944-874-70095. When the item that you would like to comment on is being discussed, press *9 to let us know that you'd like to speak. You will be called upon by the last three digits of your phone number. After you are called upon, please press *6 to unmute yourself. For those who are attending this meeting in person and would like to provide a public comment, please fill out a request to speak form and turn it into the secretary. All speakers will have 3 minutes to speak, and I will alert you when your time is up. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to public comments on non-agenda items. Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak on non-agenda items? Non-agenda items. I'm sorry, I did not hear her. Non-agenda item. That's just right. Okay. All right.
I need a form as well, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else need a form? No, we're the owners of the property. don't have anyone who wish to speak. Moving on to the consent calendar items. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the following on the consent. Item A, minutes from the 5/13/2021 meeting, and to excuse the absence of Commissioner Schiff. Is there a maker?
I'll make the motion.
Moved by Commissioner McLaughlin, second by Commissioner Marashi. Yes, sir.
Chair, is there also a excuse absence for Commissioner Frazier?
No, and this is the second meeting he has not called in. Okay. All those in favor say aye. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, we have to have, since Commissioner Sarmiento is on Zoom, we have to have a roll call vote on all items tonight. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Roll call vote. Commissioner Carpenter. Commissioner Hardy.
Yes.
Commissioner Marashi.
Yes.
Commissioner Schiff. Commissioner Peña Sarmiento.
yes,
Commissioner Frazier. Commissioner McLaughlin.
Aye.
Vice Chair Rush.
Aye.
Chair Christie.
Yes.
Motion passes by majority vote with Commissioner Schiff and Commissioner Frazier absent.
Thank you so much. Moving on to the business calendar. Please note, the formal action of the Historic Resource Commission shall be effective after the 10th day appeal period, unless the city or council holds a public hearing on the matter. Public hearing on the matter, then a formal action will become effective on the day following the hearing and decision by the city council. Until from that decision or requirement of the commission must be filed with the clerk of the council and a copy sent to the planning department within 10 days of the date of the commission's action. The appeal may be made by any interested party, individual, or group. With that statement, public hearing protocols, I'd like to bring to your attention. I will now review the process for the public hearing so that everyone knows what to expect. Staff will provide the presentation and answer to questions from the commission. The public hearing will be open. The applicant will be given the opportunity to speak, limited to 15 minutes. So you have 15 minutes. Members of the public will be given the opportunity to comment, limited to 3 minutes. The applicant will be given the opportunity to respond to comments made by the public, limited to 5 minutes. Okay, does everyone understand that? Okay, this is regarding the applicant. The public hearing will be closed. Discussion will return to the commission with formal action taken to approve, deny, or continue review of the application. Please consider the following suggestions when organizing your comments. A, please state your name and address, which is strictly voluntary. Your address is strictly voluntary, it's required, okay? State whether you support, oppose, or neutral to the proposal. C, your statement should include all pertinent facts within your knowledge. Okay, everyone understand the procedure? Okay. Nice to see you nodding. Okay, with this, all right. This is a time place to consider item number 1. Historic Resource Commission application number 2021-11, Historic Register Conversation number 2021-11, and Historic Property Preservation Agreement number 2021-10 for the property located at 935 20th Street. Please note, decision on this matter is final unless appealed within 10 calendar days. Before we can begin, do any commissioners have anything they wish to disclose regarding to this item? I met with the applicants.
I drove by the property this afternoon.
I drove by the property this afternoon as well.
I drove by the properties this afternoon and then I'd say half of it, as well as neighbors.
No, just this second. Okay, anyone else? Okay, with that, the staff will now provide a brief presentation.
Good evening, Madam Chair and fellow commissioners. It's really nice to see everyone in person today.
I'm sorry, Pedro, I should have stopped you before this, but everyone that I visited on Saturday had glowing comments on you. They love you. You gave them instructions as to need to do this or that in a way, you know, to bring it before the commission. They could not, executive director time, they could not be complimentary, more complimentary than I've ever heard anyone say. And I've been on this commission many years, and this is the first employee of the staff, especially with resource, besides time, splits. Other than that, but even with that, they're more complimentary to Pedro. And I just wanted to bring you attention that we do have staff that's out there that's dedicated, that is willing to work, believe in our mission of the Historic Commission, and is out there to help our residents get these homes on the register. So everyone, let's give them a hand. Okay. Now that's your
Not used to this color. Thank you for that, Madam Chair. Before we move on to agenda item number 1, I did want to take a second and remind our commission of 2 categories that we'll be seeing today as part of the presentations. The first one being, in order for a property to be considered and categorized as key, it must have distinctive architectural style and quality, or be characteristic of a significant period in the history of the city, or be associated with a significant person or event in the city. In order for a property to be considered or categorized as contributive, it must be contribute to the overall character and history of a neighborhood or district and be a good example of period architecture. The first item on tonight's agenda is a request to place the property address 935 West 20th Street on the Santa Ana Register and to execute a mills-out agreement with the property owner. The Russell Irving House is a minimal traditional house with colonial revival detailing constructed in 1956. The house qualifies for listing as an intact example of a side gable roof variant of the minimal traditional house with colonial revival detailing. Additionally, the house has been categorized as contributive because it contributes to the overall character and history of West Floral Park and is a representative example of the minimal traditional architecture. Character defining features of the Russell Irving House include the materials and finishes. The stucco can't be seen on this elevation because it's located along the north, west, and east elevation. But the horizontal wood board lap siding is visible on this image here. It's located along the south elevation. Also, the side gable roof with a modest overhang. So you can see that the roof style of this house is considered a side gable, meaning that the gable pitch of it is seen from either the west or the east elevation. It's multi-pane double hung windows framed with shutters and the classical main entry surround, which can be seen on this photo as well. This main entry. Staff recommends that the commission adopt a resolution to approve HRCA 2021-11 and HRC 2021-11 and recommend that the City Council authorize HPPA 2021-10. That concludes staff's presentation for this item. I'd be happy to take questions at this time.
Do any of the commissioners have questions? I do. Okay, couple, all right. Now, from what I understand from you working with the applicant, please bring that picture. Okay, on the west side of the house there, the board panels need to be replaced, is that correct?
I believe this might be the south elevation, but it's not visible on this photo, but I guess if you, on this photo to the west of it, or I guess depending on where you're looking at it, to the left of it, there's an area that was replaced, not sure how long ago, but it's a little inconsistent with the linings of the original horizontal board siding. So that was mentioned to the property owners as something that they may need to be replaced and made
Subject
consistent.
to those. boards.
Realigning of those boards, yeah.
Realigning
Yeah.
the boards. Okay, and then I noticed that they have a railing. Okay, in the minimal traditional colonial and the rest of the style of homes, this is the only home that I saw with the railing. Is this consistent to have a railing?
No, it's not consistent with this style. We're unsure of when it was maybe constructed, but certainly not original. But with these types of railings, they're not considered permanent and they're not considered as something that detracts as part of the overall style, and certainly the primary elevation. So it's something that we're comfortable with as staff to recommend, listing while the railing is still there. If a commission felt it was necessary to remove the railing to make it, I guess, worthy of listing, certainly within their purview.
Yeah, especially when it's being contributed with the rest of the style of homes that are out there, as far as what you're coming in to say, that this is coming into, it's contributed, for the design of the area. And this one has a distinct feature with the rails that is not consistent with the area that's on there, okay? And then I understand the door that you're going to be working with them to replace. I believe you have your cat, the cat with the door that they put up temporarily to, for the back of the door in the front that is not consistent with the colonial revival, that you are going to be working with them, subject to helping them to get the correct materials for that door. Is that correct?
That was expressed by the property owners for a desire to keep that door. I understand that it's pretty hard to maintain their animals within the house with any other alternatives. So I did express to them that similar to the railing, it's not original and it's not consistent with the style, but it's considered something that could be replaced easily with a door that is consistent. So it wasn't part of something that I had concerns about primarily. But again, if the commission feels that it's something that needs to be changed to be considered for listing, they're certainly able to do so. And it could be a condition of approval if commission is prepared to do that.
Especially when we're being consistent. When you're giving out, to me, when you're giving out, homes being brought onto our register, you mean them with contributed to the whole world, it has to be consistent. It really has to be consistent on this. So, want to hear from the applicant, now that things have been brought up, and thank you so much for that. Anyone else? Commissioner
Carpenter.
Carpenter.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I'm not so upset about the door, but I agree with the railing. Like I said, I did drive through the area, and it is a little bit out of the ordinary. So I would be reluctant to approve that railing. The door again, I'm okay with that. Thank you.
Okay.
I was kind of just the opposite. For me, it was the door. And I was okay with that.
As you see, we have a passionate crew here. Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Kate George. Okay. Right. right?
Well, Chair, can I ask a question?
Well, yeah,
I'm sorry, it's just dawned on me. I'm curious, the name of this house is Russell Irving. Of course, it was built by Roy Russell, right?
Correct.
According to the notes here, who was a very prominent builder in Santa Ana for many years. Did he live in the house?
He tended not to. When he built them, usually maybe if most a year, but they were sold usually right away. But because of the significance to the development of West Flora Park and Flora Park, a lot of these homes do have a Russell kind of hyphenated to it, along with someone who might have lived there for a long time or someone who's just.
Yeah, I mean, there's hundreds of
Yeah.
houses built by Roy Russell or his son all over Santa Ana, not just north end of town. My house I lived in Washington Square was the Roy Russell house, and I lived next door was his former daughter-in-law as well, but which was another Roy Russell house. But anyway, okay, that's all.
Okay, one more time. Any other comments from the questions? If not, I will now would like to invite the applicant for the commission.
Good afternoon. My name is Frank Filiponio. This is my wife, Kristen Marcucci. We are the owners of the Russell Irving House at 935 West 20th Street. We appreciate you considering us to be added to the registry. I don't know if you want us to speak to the issues that you brought up about the door and the railing and the siding, but let me first say, we're both from the Chicago area originally. And when we moved to California, I've been out here for about 30 years. Kristen's been out here for about 20 years. And we actually met out here and found out that we grew up in the same area back in Illinois. But we've been looking for a house for the past 5 or 6 years. And we've driven all over Orange County looking for places that we could call a home that felt like the neighborhoods we grew up in around Chicago. Kristen herself is from Oak Park, which is known for a lot of Frank Lloyd Wright homes. And we had some friends move into West Floral about 9 years ago. And we came to visit them one weekend and just fell in love with the neighborhood. We saw so many of our neighbors out on the street, kids playing ball. And as we wound our way through to their house, there was a car show going on, there were food booths, and it was just such an amazing connection that we had with this neighborhood. So we've been looking for homes in this neighborhood ever since. And when we found this one, it really jumped out at us.
I myself grew up in a historic craftsman home in the Oak Park area. So I really have always loved and appreciated the older homes. So when we found Floral West Floral, it just felt like home to me. And we just love being part of a neighborhood that has historic homes and are just thrilled to be in a house that we can try and preserve and keep historic and kind of be stewards of. So we're very excited about that.
Yeah, and we were very happy that the home was in pretty much original condition. The railing itself, just basing it on the bolts that are holding the railing in place, look like it's been there for over 50 years. So that's not something we're completely opposed to removing, but it has been there for a long time. And it is a step, so it does provide a little bit of a safety measure. The siding is mostly obscured by the shrubs out front, but that was something that was probably repaired 40 or 50 years ago, we were told. So again, that's something we wouldn't be opposed to replacing, but it's been there for a long time. It wasn't something we did when we moved in. The security door, that was something the previous owners had a retractable screen door, and it just was too rickety for our cats. And for us to be able to use the front door, we needed something more secure. The front door itself, the wooden door, is not original. It was probably from the 80s or 90s.
It's got some like brass.
It has some brass detailing and a brass semicircle light at the top. And so when we looked for a door that would give us the security, but would kind of preserve the look of the house, we picked out what was called their colonial style storm door. And so we went with that design, just to give us the security of our cats not being able to cut through it with their claws and escape. Also, when we opened the door for fresh air to pass through the house and stuff, we have something that can stay there and stay secure.
So we were hoping to keep the door, or at least if there's a suggestion for a replacement screen door that would be secure, we would be okay doing that. We were hoping we'd be able to keep it just, since it is a temporary, not permanent fixture to the home, and it would provide security for our pets, but
Yeah, if not that exact door, then something similar, hopefully, that would secure, securely latch and give our cats, the ability to not cut through it, so.
So when I'm hearing you say,
Yeah.
you're not opposed to, number one, replacing the board to match, okay? Okay, it's done, like you said, we didn't do it, okay?
Oh, yeah.
But you're coming before us,
yeah,
okay? You're getting, presenting us with a minimal traditional, so you now going to have to apply with that standard, okay? You're not opposed of removing the railing to comply with the standard, and a door, working with Pedro to find a door that will meet your needs. Am
Sure.
I understanding that?
Of course,
Yeah.
yes.
and we do want to note that we did just restore and paint our windows when we bought the home a couple years ago. We're not in the greatest shape, and we just got them painted, and they look
They were
great.
reputtied and repainted, but they're all still the original.
Why, and you're working with Pedro.
Yeah. And Pedro has been wonderful.
Yeah, we want to echo that sentiment. He's been wonderful through this whole process.
And I'm sure Pedro will help you every step of the way. Is that correct? So Chicago,
Yeah.
you put your Cubs fan flag out there, and you found out you had other fans that.
I don't know, we're a little divided. My family's more of a Sox fan, so we haven't done the
Yeah,
flag.
We don't want to create a rivalry.
Well, welcome to the sunny shores of California,
Thank you.
and you can enjoy, you don't have to shovel out the snow.
I really do not miss the shoveling, absolutely.
Okay.
So thank you.
Any commissioner have any questions of the applicant at this time? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Okay. Does anybody, any commissioner have any questions of staff before we go?
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner
Perfect.
Carpenter.
Yeah, obviously the owners are very willing to do what's asked of them. Is there any kind of a time frame or anything like that that would be set?
You could, if you wanted to consider that. One alternative as well, depending on timing, is to make it a condition possibly to kind of hold off on the Mills Act until that's done. I do want to remind the commission though that there is an effort to get those recorded this year for them to take effect the following fiscal year, 2022. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend that item, but I guess maybe work with staff in a timely manner to get those changes done would be my recommendation.
Frank, or Kristen, how long do you think you'll be able to meet? If we apply the Mills Act with those stipulations, and I think we need November, no later than November, because we have to submit it into the state for you to get the benefit in December. Is this a reasonable timeline for you to get these corrected?
So certainly removing the railing would be very simple.
To make sure that we fix whatever hole.
Yeah, just patching, and then the boards, that might take a little bit longer. There have been lumber shortages and high lumber prices we've heard of, so matching the width of those boards might be a little more difficult. But I think by November, certainly, we'd be able to do that.
Okay, and the door, of course.
And same thing with sourcing for the door.
So this is a reasonable timeline for you.
Yeah, I think as long as we can get whatever materials are needed, we would absolutely do it as quickly as we can.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, yes.
Chair, just a comment, given that these Mills Act contracts are subject, I believe, to annual audit, we put it in as a condition of our approval. It's gonna pop up soon enough if it's not done within a year. And then they wind up jeopardizing their Mills Act contract. So that I would encourage us to be able to vote and make that a condition of our approval so that that can be expedited and they can take advantage of the tax benefit as soon as possible.
You can include this in the motion.
Sure.
Entertain the motion, as subject to, and so forth. Okay,
Just
anyone,
just for clarification,
Commissioner?
it's my understanding that the Mills Act goes to the county,
Yeah,
not to the state.
right.
You said state, so it's the county that reviews the Mills Act.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on. Have we received any written communication from the secretary?
We have not received any written communication.
Okay. With that, the public hearing is now open and we have the applicant to speak. This bring it back to the commission to take comments. Any comments from the public on this application? If not, I now declare the hearing closed. Okay. Does the commission have any final questions for staff? Okay, then. Since I'm a legal professional here, and getting this correct, I would like to entertain a motion to adopt a resolution approving Historic Resource Commission application 2021-11 and historic register capitalization number 2021-11. Recommend that the city council authorize the city manager and clerk of the council to execute attached Mills Act agreement to Frank Polano and Christian Marcusi. Close enough. Subject to substantive, non-substantive changes approved by the city manager and city attorney. In addition, subject to the replacement of the two boards on the front part of the house, removal of the hand railings, and to replace the front door. Right, okay. And the painting of the windows and so forth. Is that correct?
So, yeah, those we completed.
Right, we complete it. Okay. Maker, somebody move the motion?
I'll make a motion.
Moved by Vice Chair Rush, is there a second?
I can second that.
Second by Commissioner Carney. Okay, all those, I'm sorry.
Roll call.
I'm so happy to have you in front of me. Okay, roll call vote. Please. Madam
Yes.
Secretary.
Roll call vote, Commissioner Carpenter,
Approved.
Commissioner Curry,
Yes.
Commissioner Marashi,
Yeah.
Commissioner Peña Sarmiento,
yes,
Commissioner McLaughlin,
Yes.
Vice Chair Rush,
Aye.
Chair Christie.
Aye.
Motion passes by majority vote with Commissioner Schiff and Fraser absent.
Congratulations. Okay. All right, moving on. This is the time and place to consider item number 2, Historic Resource Commission application number 2021-06, Historic Register categorization number 2021-06, and Historic Property Preservation Agreement number 2021-06 for the property located at 2307 North Benton Lane. Please note, decision on this matter is final unless appealed within 10 calendar days. Before we begin, do any of the commissioners have anything that they wish to disclose regarding this item?
I need to recuse myself because it's within 500 feet of my home.
Okay.
Right, John? Okay. I'll stay, my microphone will be off, but I'll stay in the room.
Hit the road.
Really, Jack?
Thanks, man. Well, I remember that one.
Commission thought would be too late to obtain yourself a bylaw, so.
I was sure.
That's okay, I'll remember that one.
Provided you excuse yourself under the ice.
I will call you when it's done.
Oh, good, thanks.
I drove by the property, so.
Okay.
Yes, it does.
As did I, and I also talked to the woman.
Okay, I didn't talk to the owner, I walked up to. Okay. Staff will now provide a brief presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The second item on tonight's agenda is a request to place the property at 2307 North Benton Way onto the Santa Ana Register and to execute a mills action agreement with the property owner. The Martha Ann Brooks house is the Hacienda variant of the ranch down, constructed in 1951. The house qualifies for listing under criterion 1 as an unusual example of Hacienda variant of the ranch style. The property is also notable as a residence of Martha Ann Brooks, a long-term Santa Ana resident, and her husband, Walter L. Brooks, a former city council member. The recommended categorization is key because the property has a distinctive architectural style and quality as an example of the Hacienda variants of the ranch style. Character defining features of the Martha Ann Brooks house that should be preserved include the horizontal and one-story massing. So when we say horizontal, ranch style homes tend to have a horizontal elongated kind of massing to it. The low pitched inside gable roof covered in the clay barrel tiles. So you can see the low pitched inside gable roof here with the clay tiles. The partial width open porch tucked beneath the gable roof. You don't really see those as part of the image here. The metal framed multi-pane windows in the front entry. So you can see those here along this front entry here, and it wraps around to the side elevations as well. And the exterior walls of brick and stucco. Staff recommends that the commission adopt a resolution to approve HRCA 2021-06 and HRC 2021-06 and recommend that the city council authorize HPPA 2021-06. That concludes staff's presentation. I'd be happy to take questions.
Thank you. Does any commissioner have any questions for staff? Commissioner Sarmiento? Okay, we'll go to Reverend Plummer. Thank you so much. Have we received any written communication, Madam Secretary?
We have not.
Okay. I now declare the public hearing is now open. Would the applicant like to speak on this matter? Hello.
Hello, my name is Nicolette Ramirez, and I live at 2307 North Benton Way. And so I'm the applicant here, and I believe Dylan is also on Zoom, and he has a couple things he'd like to share as well. We love this home. We lived on Flowers, we moved deeper into the neighborhood, so now we live around Benton Way. We feel that this house is very special to us. It has many of these characteristic aspects that Hacienda Ranch homes have: the large porch, the wood beams, the red clay tiles, the inside, the backyard is all open, all rooms open up to the courtyard, very typical of the Hacienda style. And not only that, Martha Ann Brooks has lived in the house until she was 100 years old. There is a YouTube video on her through the Santa Ana Historic Commission, which is fantastic. She was a great citizen from the 50s through the 80s. And so for not only our home aspects, but also her amazing life, we feel like this home is very, we're excited to be living.
Thank you so much. Beautiful.
We feel really lucky to be living here.
Is Benjamin, did you say?
Benjamin's home with the, or our two daughters right now. We have a 3 and a 6-year-old, so he's with them right now.
The, I mean, Zoom.
If he is, probably not. He's the kid that's running.
Oh,
around.
I thought you said you had some questions.
Oh, no, Dylan on the drum. I saw his little hand up on the Zoom screen. He was raising his hand.
And he's on the line.
He's right.
Oh, okay.
He used to work at like the historic room in the
Oh,
library.
And you can speak.
He has more information, I'm sure.
I just wanted to know. Sure. Dylan, are you there?
Yes, I am here. How's everyone? Can everyone hear me?
Yes, yeah.
Wonderful. First, I want to thank the commission for bringing this up today and for Pedro for making the presentation. I just wanted to kind of remember my friend Martha Ann. She passed away in 2019. She lived in that house from the point of its construction till her passing at the age of 101 years and 7 months old. She is kind of a legendary figure as far as the library is concerned. She was a major force in fundraising for the library in the late 1950s, which I understand is going to be getting a remodel soon. So yay for that. I actually filmed the 100th birthday interview with Martha Ann in that house, which is actually available on the Santa History Room's YouTube channel as a short format documentary. And that documentary was also shown at her 100th birthday party at the Nixon Presidential Library. So Martha Ann was a magnanimous figure in Santa Ana's landscape in the mid 20th century, up until about the 1980s when she began to slow down and retire a little bit. But she kept on working and doing her best for the city until the end. And I'm really happy that her house will be preserved by a couple that will lovingly take care of it. And there are children there, which I'm sure will make Martha Ann very, very happy. So that's all I have. I want to thank you. And I'm very happy to see the commission back in person again.
Thank you so much, Dylan. Great comments. Thank you for bringing that before the commission. Okay. Okay. Does the commission have any comments or questions for the applicant? Commissioner Murphy.
I just want to say I'm so glad you bought this house. You know, I was so worried when you moved. I thought you moved out of the neighborhood, so it's great to see you move into this house. And by the way, she single-handedly trying to convert all the homes under the historic registry. This is her second house. And next to Sarah McDonald, she has put on the registry. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anyway, I just say, when you walk up to the house, it takes you back to old California with a hacienda like that. Then, you know, I even like the pig at the front door. I mean, that is the cutest thing, you know, like, I'm sure the hacienda had livestock, animals running around. So, but I'm so glad that you bought this, preserved this, and I mean, this is so important to us because it's listed as key, and I know that you guys are going to preserving this in the part of history.
Yes.
This is a true reflection of California.
And it's so rare in our neighborhood. I think there's only 2 of them that are the style in our neighborhood, so it's super special to us.
Special to the city too. Thank you so much. Okay. Now we would like to hear comments from the public. Madam Secretary, do we have any members of the public that would like to say any comments?
If there are any other members or participants via Zoom that would like to comment on this item, please select the hand icon now or press *9 if you're calling in. We'll wait a few seconds. We do not have any callers here.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, with that, I now declare the public hearing now closed. Does the commission have any final questions for staff? Nothing? Okay, then I'd like to entertain a motion to adopt the resolution of Wayne Historic Resource Commission application 2021-06 for the historic register categorization number 2021-06. Number 2, recommend that the city council authorize the city manager and the clerk of the council to execute the attached Mills Act agreement with Benjamin and Nickel, Ellen Valdez Ramirez, subject to non-substantive changes approved by the city manager and city attorney.
Madam Chair, I'm so happy to meet you.
Moved by Commissioner Marashi.
I'll second.
Second by Vice Chair Rush. Roll call, please.
Yes, roll call vote. Commissioner Carpenter,
Yes.
Commissioner Hardy,
Yes.
Commissioner Marashi,
Yes.
Commissioner Kenya Sarmiento,
yes,
Chair, Commissioner Vice Chair Rush,
Aye.
Chair Christie.
Aye.
Motion passes by majority vote with Commissioner Schiff and Fraser absent and Commissioner McLaughlin abstained.
Congratulations. Well. Okay. Commissioner McLaughlin, you may enter the room. This is so much fun because we applaud every application. You don't know how hard it is on television. I mean, on screen. Everyone is welcome back.
Yeah.
Really? Which number? All right, moving on. This is the time and place to consider item number 3, Historic Resource Commission application number 2021-13, Historic Register categorization number 2021-13, and Historic Property Preservation Agreement number 2021-12 for the property located at 2311 North Helix Road Drive. Please note, decision on this matter is final unless appealed within 10 calendar days. Before we begin, do the commissioners have anything they wish to disclose?
Yeah, Keith Carpenter, I know about the property.
So did I walked up and around the property.
As did I.
As well as I did, and talk to the homeowner.
Okay. We now the staff will provide a brief presentation.
Thank you. The next property for listing in Mills Act consideration is the Ida C. Weissman House, located at 2311 North Heliotrope Drive in the Floral Park neighborhood. The house is a textbook example of a minimal traditional house constructed in 1948. It qualifies for listing on the register under criteria 1 for its exemplification of the minimal traditional style. An example of the gable and wing variant of the style, the house exhibits details consistent with the colonial revival, including its combination of red brick and wood lap siding, wood frame and multi-pane double hung sash windows, open front porch whose canopy is supported by a single slender post, and details such as a frieze board and window shutters. So those elements that I just described are seen on this front elevation, including the wood siding, the shutters, the multi-pane windows, the entry porch with the slender post, and the side lights here in the brick side. The house is also of interest because it was built by the Allison Horner Company, a key firm in the development of the Floral Park neighborhood. The recommended categorization is contributive because it contributes to the overall character and history of Floral Park and is a representative example of the minimal traditional architecture. Some of the character defining features I previously listed, but I'll go over them quickly again. The wood siding, the wood shutters, multi-pane windows, the entry with the slender post, and the brick facade along the front. Some of these elements are also replicated along the side elevations which can't be seen on this photo. With that, staff recommends that the commission adopt the resolution to approve HRCA 2021-13 and HRC 2021-13, and recommend that the City Council authorize HPPA 2021-12. I'd be happy to take questions at this time.
I have a question. Please bring the clock back up. Okay, you did it from the side.
This is, well, kind of along the front.
Okay.
Yeah.
Notice the tree in the front. Okay, view corridor. If you come in from the other side, you cannot see the gable roof. You cannot see it from the street as you're approaching, going south on that. Did you discuss the tree for blocking the view?
That was not discussed with the applicant.
All right. Yeah, because number one, one of the most important features is that gable roof. You cannot see it from the view corridor. So that was one question. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, thank you so much. Okay. Have we received, Madam Secretary, any written communication?
No written communication on this item.
Okay. All right, I will now open the public hearing and would like the applicant to speak on the matter. The applicant here.
Was the applicant online? Because I talked to them and they thought they would be online.
Is the applicant on the line?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for discussing our home today. In regards to the tree, it is not as big as it appears in the picture, I promise. And the gable is highly visible from the sidewalk and the street when passing by our home. It also provides wonderful shade for that beautiful bedroom in the front because we are west facing. Does that address your concerns today?
I'm sorry, would you repeat it again? I'm sorry. Did you say that the tree was not blocking the view?
I'm sorry, I believe it's very minimally involved in the view in real life.
Okay, if I'm looking at this picture, the top of your tree really covers that gable roof from the view. And one of the things that historic property on the view corridor, you have to see it from the street driving down. And it looks like it's hidden or even walking in the area on all sides of the house. So it looks like, you know, if you could just turn it back just a little bit, people will be able to, the gable roof is an important part of the structure of that home, and especially when it's becoming contributed. Did you lose it?
She is on the line, but she is muted. Lauren, if you'd like to continue, please unmute yourself.
I'm sorry, I don't know what you'd like me to say. Maybe Dylan could offer some insight on this.
I do have Dylan on the line. Chair Christie, he has raised his hand if you'd like to get to now?
Yes.
Okay, Dylan, please go ahead.
Hi, everyone hear me?
Yeah, Dylan.
So there's a question of a tree blocking a portion of the viewing corridor. Right?
Right. If you see that, you cannot, if you're walking. All right, if you're walking towards the tree, you can't see the gable roof, you know, because of the top of the tree. If it could be trimmed back, or if you're driving down the street, you know, going towards that tree, you can't see the gable roof. And the new corridor, you've got to have it so that you can see the complete outline of that home.
There are, if we're driving through the neighborhoods, like, you know, we all do, there's lots of trees blocking portions of houses that are on Mills Act. I don't think it detracts much, if any, from the viewing corridor of this house in particular. You can still see the brickwork, the roof line is clearly visible, at least from this picture. I'm not refuting, I'm just, it's not even that large of a tree. But what I really wanted to talk about was the fact that the owner of this home, Ida Weissman, she and her husband owned one of the first and longest running stores in Santa Ana from 1910 to 1961 on 4th Street. They were an original stakeholder in our community. I feel that's really important as far as collecting and maintaining and preserving the historic landscape, not just architectural, but also personal, biographical, as far as the legacy as our city is concerned. That's all I really wanted to say.
Okay, thank you for your comments, Dylan. Okay, anyone else? Anyone else from the public? If not, I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. Does the commission have any final questions for staff? Okay, is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve this application for historic register categorization and Mills Act. I'm sorry. It's application number 2021-13 and historic register categorization number 2021-13 and historic property preservation agreement number 2021-12, property located 2311 North Heliotrope Grove Drive.
Okay.
Second motion.
Oh, hold on. Okay, okay, adopt a resolution. Let me rephrase it for you.
Okay.
Adopt a resolution approving historic resource commission application 2021-13 on the historic register categorization number 2021-13. Number 2, recommend to the city council authorize the city manager and clerk of the council to execute the Mills Act agreement with Warren and Jenny Hartshorn, subject to non-substantive changes approved by the city manager and city attorney. So you can move by Vice Chair Rush. Second by Commissioner McLaughlin. Roll call, please.
Yes, roll call vote. Commissioner Carpenter,
Yes.
Commissioner Hardy,
Yes.
Commissioner Marachi,
Yes.
Commissioner Peña Sarmiento,
yes,
Commissioner McLaughlin.
Aye.
Vice Chair Rush,
Aye.
Chair Christie.
No.
A motion passes by majority vote with Commissioners Shipp and Frazier absent and Chair Christie dissent.
Okay. Thank you so much. Let's give them a hand. Okay, this is the time and place to consider item number 4, historic Resource Commission application number 2021-4, historic registered taxation number 2021-4, and historic property preservation agreement number 2021-4 for property located at 2424 North Bonnie Bridge. Note, decision on this matter is final unless appealed within 10 days. Before we begin, do the commissioner have anything they wish to disclose with regards to this item?
Yes, Keith Carpenter by the property today.
The chair, I spoke to the applicant.
Chair, I drove by it today as well.
Commissioner Marashi, I drove by it today.
We have to wait for Commissioner Sarmiento. Is she on? Okay, just checking. Okay, staff will now provide a brief presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The fourth item on tonight's agenda is a request to place the property address as 2424 North Bonnie Bridge on the Santa Ana Register and to execute a no act agreement with the property owner. Before I move on, I did want to point out one typo in the staff report that went out to the commission. I believe it made reference to another property historic name instead of the house. So if that showed up as part of the staff report, it was a typo. There was a typo in the staff report presented to the commission. I believe it listed the wrong historic name as part of this report. Instead of the Clarence House, it listed Ida C. Wiseman. So just a clarification, it's the Clarence House. The Clarence House is a ranch style house constructed in 1950. The house qualifies for listing under criterion 1 as a characteristic and intact example of a post-World War II ranch style house in Santa Ana. Its most notable feature is the metal framed multi-light facade fenestration, which can be seen along the front elevation of this photo. The recommended categorization is contributive because it contributes to the post-World War II character and history of Floral Park, and is a good example of the ranch style architecture. Character defining features of the Clarence Bond House that should be preserved include, may not be limited to the metal framed multi-light facade fenestration, the overall horizontal massing of it, the combination of the exterior building materials, including the broad horizontal board siding, the brick, and the colonial revival detailings. With that, staff recommends that the HRC adopt a resolution to approve HRCA 2021-04 and HRC 2021-04 and recommend that the City Council authorize HPPA 2021-04. I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you so much. Does the commission have any questions for staff? Okay. Have we received any written communication from the secretary?
We have not received any written communication.
Okay, with that, the public hearing is now open. If the applicant would like to speak to the matter. Hi, Brooke. How are you?
Hello, good to see you again. Thank you all for being here, for having me. I don't really have too much to add. I moved to Orange County 10 years ago when they opened the fancy new law school in Irvine, and started looking for what neighborhood I would want to settle in. And then about a little over 2 years ago, my parents started thinking, well, one day we'll have to move in with one of our kids. We should look at where we can invest in a ranch style home that will be a good fit for our caretaking. And fortunately, we found this neighborhood, which we all really loved and are excited for me to have the opportunity to live here and for them to be able to join me here if and when there comes a time when they need some assistance. They're both in Zoom watching us. And so I'm happy to answer any questions, but we just kind of love the history of the house. And I've been, which I know you spoke to at the beginning, really excited to work with Pedro and talk about what we can do to maintain the integrity of it and to bring some of the period appropriate landscaping. And so we're excited to get started on what things we can do under the Mills Act if we're approved.
Thank you. Does any of the commissioners have a question for the applicant? No. Thank you so much. Dr. Garcia. Now we would like to take comment from the public. Madam Secretary, any members of the public that would like to comment?
There is a member of the public participating via Zoom that would like to comment on this item. Please raise your hand, or if you're calling in, press star 9 now. I do see Dylan has raised his hand. Dylan, please go ahead.
Hi, everyone hear me?
Yes.
I promise this will be the last time I speak for the meeting. I just wanted to touch on the fact that this home was actually built by contractor John N. Galbraith, who is a little known contractor in Santa Ana, who's actually a Santa Ana native and was witness to the burning of Chinatown in 1906. And this house was built in 1950. So you can understand that Mr. Galbraith lived here and witnessed a whole heck of a lot, along with names like Charles Swanner. Now, Mr. Bond, who is well, that there's a typo in the, and I'll quit it to Pedro, but there's a typo in the presentation. It's George Clarence Bond. So this house might need to be renamed in the presentation or on the paperwork as the Bond House. Now, Mr. Bond was a transplant to Santa Ana and made a bunch of money selling bonds. So much so that he actually lived on Victoria Drive for a time. And then after World War II, decided he wanted to live in the new development of Bonnie Brae, which Bonnie Brae was the last small pocket of Floral Park to be developed in post-war. So that speaks to the growth and change of Santa Ana and of Floral Park during this time, especially when you have what I would consider a legacy member of our society trying to keep up with the times architecturally, going from a neoclassical ranch, neoclassical home on Victoria to a ranch home on Bonnie Brae. It's a wonderful house, amazing details. It has been kept up extremely well through original owners who actually lived there until the 1980s. So you can understand that it exists, it displays a high amount of historical integrity. That is all I have. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Dylan. Okay. Anyone else from the public?
Check chair. I don't see any other hands raised.
Okay, then I declare the public hearing closed. Does the commission have any final questions for staff? Okay, then I entertain a motion to, one, adopt the resolution approving Historic Resource Commission application number 2021-04 and Historic Register categorization number 2021-04. Two, recommend that the city council authorize the city manager and clerk of council to execute the attached Mills Act agreement with Albert Frank Weitzman, Mora. This is Weitzman, David A. Weitzman, and Brooke Weitzman, subject to non-substantive changes approved by the city manager and the city attorney.
Commissioner Marashi moves the motion.
Moved by Commissioner Marashi. I can second that. Second by Commissioner Hardy. All roll call, please.
Yes, roll call vote. Commissioner Carpenter.
Yes.
Commissioner Hardy.
Yes.
Commissioner Marashi.
Yes.
Commissioner Sarmiento.
yes,
Commissioner McLaughlin.
Aye.
Vice Chair Rush.
Aye.
Chair Christie.
Aye.
Motion passes by majority vote with Commissioner Schiff and Fraser absent.
Thank you. Congratulations. And take your rescue note. All right. Thank you. Okay, moving on. This is the time and place to consider item number 5, Historic Resource Commission application number 2021-12. 2206 North Freeman Street. Please note, the decision on this matter is final unless appealed within 10 calendar days. Before we begin, do any commissioners have anything they wish to disclose regarding this house?
Yes, Keith Carpenter, I drove by the property today.
Commissioner Rashi, I drove by the property and also talked to the home.
I met with the property owner.
Vice Chair Rush, I was by the property this afternoon as well.
Okay, there we go. Okay. Staff will now do a brief presentation. Hello.
Good evening, Madam Chair and fellow commissioners. My name is Jill Arabi. This is probably my first time I've come to the Historic Commission to actually present my first item.
Well,
So-
they're friendly.
The fifth item on today's agenda is a request to place the property address at 2206 North Freeman Street on the Santa Ana Register of Historical Properties and to execute a Mills Act agreement with the property owner. The Eisenglasser House is a ranch-style house constructed in 1956. The house qualifies for listing under criterion 1 for embodiment of the distinguishing characteristics of the ranch house style. The property is also notable for its association with the Glasser family, who were prominent members of the Jewish community in Santa Ana. The recommended categorization is contributive because it contributes to the overall character and history of West Flora Park and is a good example of ranch-style architecture. Character defining features include, but may not be limited to, its horizontality, keynoted by low-pitched, gabled and hip roof, rusticity epitomized by the combination of materials and finishes. You'll see the wide wood lap siding along the left side of the house and board and batten on the right. Wide open eaves with visible rafters behind the fascia and picturesque fenestration, notably the large picture multi-pane living room window on the right here, and 2 pairs of wood frame diamond pane double hung sash windows. Staff recommends that the commission adopt a resolution to approve HRCA 2021-12 and HRC 2021-12 and recommend city council authorize HPPA 2021-11. This concludes staff's presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you so much. Any commissioners have questions for staff? No? Okay, thank you so much. You did great. Madam Secretary, do you have any communication?
We have not received any written communication on this item.
Okay, and with that, I'll move the public hearing open. I see the Collins are in the house. Hi, you would love. Healthy little ones, are they okay?
Good evening. My name is Vanessa Collins. This is my husband, Jacob. And we are Orange County natives, but we recently discovered Floral Park in West Floral Park just a few years ago and just fell in love with the neighborhood. I'm a history teacher in Garden Grove Unified, and so I have a deep love and passion for all things that are historical. And when we were looking for a home to raise our children, and we just fell in love with this house when we saw the diamond pane windows and the just historical 1950s classic look of it. And we really just want to maintain the integrity of the home. Just being the curious people that we are, we did want to find out more history about the family that originally lived there, which were the Glassers. And so again, Dylan, I believe, is still on the line, but I've fallen in love with the story, so I can tell it myself. The Glassers moved in 1959 to the home. It was built in 1957. The Glassers were Bernard and Bluma. They got married in the 1950s, and her family, Bluma's family, actually has even deeper roots in Santa Ana. Her parents were one of the pioneer Jewish families in Santa Ana, and so they arrived. I believe it was in the 1920s, and then Sam Hurwitz, which was her dad, and Edith, his wife, opened Hurwitz Men's Fashion Sebastian on Fourth Street in 1932. And when Bernard came from Brooklyn after World War II, he was a Navy veteran. He married their daughter, and they grew their family in this home. And Bernard was also a prominent Jewish contributor to Santa Ana. He was one of the long-lasting members of Beth Temple Shalom. And and so the Hurwitz men's fashion store was actually in their family from 1932 all the way until the 1980s. And Bernard Glasser, the owner of our home, the original owner of our home, actually was the second in charge after Sam Hurwitz died. And he lived in the home until he passed in 2016. His wife had passed in the 1990s. And so we just find that incredibly important to preserve their home as best as possible, and to maintain it. And we look forward to growing our family there. We're proud to be just the third owners of this home. Thank you.
I think she said it all. Left nothing for me.
Smart guy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does the commission have any comments or questions to the applicant?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Well, just as an aside, I mean, here you are here telling us all about the Hurwitz family and the Glasser family, and they were haberdashers. And you come down to this session and you're not wearing a tie. Don't you feel guilty?
This opportunity.
I see, yeah. You should be really good.
It's beautiful. Thank you for keeping that home. Really appreciate that. We'll now take comments from the public. Madam Secretary, anyone?
If there's anyone that wants to comment on this item, if you're participating via Zoom, please press the hand icon, or if you're calling in, please press *9. I do see Dylan's hand raised, but I'm not sure if that was his previous comment.
It didn't say that was the last previous.
Yes,
No, I'm still here.
would you like to comment on this item?
I mean, Vanessa did such a wonderful job. She kind of stole my thunder, but the house, especially, I have a lot of friends in the Jewish community, and when I mentioned I was working on this house, they're like, "You're working on Bernie's house? That's awesome!" And like to that, and that again, that speaks to the legacy of the character and the fact that this house is, its styling is unique to a lot of houses. Those diamond paned Cinderella-esque windows are really, really beautiful to look at. I'm very happy that they were able to make this meeting. And lastly, this is the last time I was speaking today. I want to thank the commission. I want to thank Pedro and Jill. You did a wonderful job, and you'll continue to do a wonderful job. That is all I have for today. Thank you all.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, if not, then I close the public hearing, bring it back to the commission. Any questions or any comments? Okay, then, I entertain a motion to adopt the resolution moving the Historic Resource Commission application number 2021-12 and Historic Register capitalization number 2021-12. Number 2, recommend that the city council authorize the city manager and clerk of the council to execute the attached Mills Act agreement with Jacob and Vanessa Collins, subject to non-substantive changes approved by the city manager and city attorney.
So moved.
Moved by Vice Chair Rush,
Second.
second by Commissioner McLaughlin. Roll call, please.
Roll call vote, Commissioner Carpenter,
Yes.
Commissioner Hardy,
Yes.
Commissioner Baranchi,
Yes.
Commissioner Pena Sarmiento,
yes,
Commissioner McLaughlin,
Aye.
Chair Rush,
Aye.
Chair Christie,
Yes.
motion approved by majority vote with Commissioner Schiff and Fraser absent.
Congratulations. Thank you so much. And welcome. Okay, this is the time and place to consider item number 6, historic exterior modification application number 2021-03 for the property located at 2405 North Bonnie Way. Please note, decision on this matter is final unless appeal within 10 calendar days. Before we begin, do any commissioner have anything they wish to disclose with regards to this item? I met with the applicants.
Commissioner Carpenter, I drove by the property.
Commissioner Marashi also drove by today.
Commissioner Rush, I drove by today as well. And we could have had car wrecks down there.
I know where the door is. I have to recuse myself.
Okay. Now that Commissioner McLaughlin has exited the building. Okay, we will now have a presentation from staff.
The 6th item for your consideration is a request to permit exterior modifications to a historic structure located at 2405 North Bonnie Brae. I want to clarify that the property is deemed historic because it was determined eligible for inclusion in the National Register of Historic Places as a contributor to the potential North Broadway Park Historic District in 1980 and automatically included in the California Register of Historical Resources. It is not locally listed on the Santa Ana Historic Register. The property is located on the northwest corner of Bonnie Brae and Benton Way in the Floral Park neighborhood as seen in the site area photograph on this slide. The house has distinctive architectural features of the Tudor style and was built in 1928. The house is characterized by steeply pitched roofs, multi-paned narrow windows, a heavy wooden front door, prominent cross gable design, and tall chimney feature, though you don't see the chimney from this angle. The front elevation offers a long sweeping steep front-facing gable roof, as you see on the right there in the photo, an arched brick gable entry, and multiple multi-pane narrow casement windows. The proposed exterior modifications will include a 446 square foot addition for an expanded kitchen, basement, and bathroom, 340 square foot rear covered porch, and a 126 square foot rear garage addition. Site improvements include detached accessory structures, an in-ground pool and spa within the yards, and interior renovations to an existing mudroom, laundry room, den, and kitchen. All work is proposed to be located behind the primary elevation of the house. The slide shows a site plan of the property showing the attached additions to the house and detached garage in red, and 3 detached accessory structures shown in yellow. As you see here, the yellow are the detached structures in the yards and the rear additions. This is a proposed floor plan showing the house and a large floor plan of the house. On the left, expanded kitchen, bathroom, and then this rear covered porch. And on the right is the enlarged version of the garage with the addition at the rear. This next slide is the south elevation fronting Bonnie Brae. As you can see, the image of the existing house is on the right, with the addition slightly visible more than 15 feet from the front facade on the left here. Next elevation is from the east, which is fronting Benton Way. House on the left with the addition set back more than 30 feet from the side property line. And then you can see a little of the outline of the detached patio cover in front of the house. Along the west elevation on this slide, you'll see the addition along the lower left of the image with the covered porch that is open on two sides and the addition. Along the north elevation, also known as the rear, again, addition and covered porch, with the materials compatible and smaller in scale to the two-story massing, and the wood windows to match the house. This slide shows the garage elevations. The only area that would be visible is along the west elevation. It is not visible from the street. The street elevation is here on the lower right, where the garage doors are being replaced. The proposed exterior modifications are considered a rehabilitation project, and as such were evaluated against the 10 criteria of Secretary of Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties. Staff determined that the project complies with the Secretary of Interior standards, specifically standards 1 through 5 and 9 and 10, where standards 6 through 8 are not applicable. The analysis found that the proposed addition would be compatible and consistent with existing architectural elements that reflect the two-door style. The proposed addition will be located on secondary elevations toward the side and rear of the house. Although visible from the public right-of-way, the proposed addition is designed to be compatible in scale with a lower roof height, setback from the primary facade, and features the reuse of existing windows or similar wood windows. Important spatial relationships characterizing the two-door style will not be disturbed, as the addition is only single-story, positioned to the rear and side of the existing house, and will not alter the existing roof line. Most importantly, the addition does not remove essential aspects of the building's form and materials. It avoids the most significant and character-defining features and is subordinate to the overall massing of the house. The essential form of the house and the vast majority of its historic materials will remain unimpaired. Staff recommends that the HRC adopt a resolution to approve a certificate of appropriateness for historic exterior modification application number 2021-3. This concludes staff's presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions of staff?
Yeah, sure. Could you bring up that the drawing of the backside, what would be the west side of the garage?
So be this elevation here.
Is there something being done there?
Yes, they are adding this portion of the image. So I can show you the floor plan.
So I see. So they're pushing out the second level of the garage. Is that it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a vaulted ceiling, yes.
So that's going to be a guest room, game room.
There isn't actually floor area there. It's just the vaulted ceiling on the first floor.
Oh, okay. And can you go back to the elevation on the, let's see, west side of the house? Okay, so they're adding the, we'll call it porch, and right, they're adding that. And then that next section to the right, that's where the kitchen's being pushed out, is that?
That is correct.
I see, okay. All right, and the view from Bonnie Gray, which would be the south elevation, yeah. That's the kitchen punch out, right?
Yes.
But it sets back from the front elevation, what did you say, some 20 or 30 feet?
More than 15 feet.
I see. Okay. That's all I have. Sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I got a question.
Commissioner Marashi?
Do we know for a historic resource? And state office, and I talked to William Bird, this is story number 2, and he says, there is no public portal to know for a fact that it is or it isn't. you would have to go to Cal State Fullerton's library and ask to have access to the state information.
It's not specifically listed as a property. When Caltrans back in widening the freeway, they were required to do a section 106 historic survey. And as part of that, they established the North Broadway Park Historic District. And this was one of the contributing national listing. And therefore, based on the regulations for the California Register, it inherently then also is listed on the California Register.
But we don't know for a fact that it is for sure, or it is,
It is,
it is.
yes,
And for sure it's not on the San Ana historic register.
correct. They would come in the future to add that.
Madam Chair, I have one more question, I'm sorry. To ask a dumb question, why would these folks not be on the San Ana register?
I mean, I would leave it up to the applicant to want to answer your question, but at this point in time, I don't
appreciate
think.
it was a period of years that they didn't want to do it because the fee was unbelievably high. Now that it's been rolled back, I'm surprised they haven't made this part of their application. But
I believe in the future they intend to, but I can defer that to the applicant.
all right.
I have a question, on the national register, are they more restricted on ramification than Santa Ana, or we follow close to the national?
It is the same standards.
Same parameters? Okay. I just needed that for my education knowledge, because, you know, being on a national register, I think national, you know, could be more restrictive than anything else, but since we are patterned or parallel with their restrictions on modification, that answers it.
Right, applying to the Secretary of Interior standards is essentially.
Madam Chair, I have a question also. You stated on the elevation view of the garage, it was only the gable, but they are adding additional floor space, correct? They're not just kicking out the roof.
Correct.
Yes, that was not made clear.
First floor area here as shown in.
Yeah.
It's just not second floor. It's just.
No, I understand, but they are increasing the size of the garage.
Correct.
Any other questions, to staff? Thank you. Okay, Madam Secretary, have we received any written communication?
Yes, one letter of written communication was received that was distributed to the commission earlier today, and it is posted.
Did everybody receive
Yes, ma'am.
communication? I know that some of the emails came pretty close to 4 o'clock, so I just want to make sure that you guys receive it. Okay. All right, okay. I now declare the public hearing open. Will the applicant like to speak? That's not Catherine. I spoke to Catherine.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm Ben Mayberry. I'm the applicant. We moved to the home in November 2019. So been there about a year and a half. And we got Carol involved. Carol's our architect to help us prepare a plan that would be consistent historically. It's something that's really important to us. We actually didn't know that we were part of that, would be part of this historic review process at the beginning, but we're committed either way to making sure that the modifications we did were consistent with the architectural style and something that would be appropriate for the neighborhood. So with that, Carol has some additional comments to make.
And she did fill out the form, okay? So you have 3 minutes.
Okay, great, thank you. So I'm Carol Tinkfox, I'm the architect, and I want to thank Pedro and Jill for helping us get to this point on the project. We do agree with the conclusions of the staff report. I'd like to give a little background this is an unusual lot for the area because the house was originally built straddling the property line of two separate properties. So therefore, the properties have never been sold separately. They've always been held by the same owner. And combine the two properties to make one so that it was now legal because there was a little bit of messiness there for a while. It's a logical place now to construct these accessory structures in this side yard, which is actually essentially was formerly like a building lot that was never developed. So the project as presented reflects a minimum amount of additions to allow the house to adapt to the needs of a modern family. For instance, the existing garage is not deep enough to park a larger modern car in, so we need to pop the back out and try to do that sensitively. There's also no existing full bathroom on the first floor, so they wanted to add a bathroom on to be able to do that. The kitchen's a little on the small side for the size house that it is. So those are the reasons for the additions. We had originally proposed a different project since we had understood that we were not on the historic registry when we first started development ideas for the property. And it was brought to our attention later that we are in fact on the California registry. So then we had to change our proposal and be able to come before you. The house is in fairly original condition with the exception of the garage doors and the bricks at the front entry and the wainscoting below some of the windows. The bricks were added after 1978 based on photographic evidence. The non-original garage doors are from an uncertain date, but and they are the ones we'd like to replace with something that is more in character with the Tudor style. All the proposed additions to both the main house and the accessory structures have been detailed to be compatible with the original without copying them to be able to maintain that differentiation that's required by the Secretary of Interior standard. The Mayberrys have reached out to several neighboring neighbors and in advance of this meeting to have the opportunity to show them the plan. 415 Bonnie Gray expressed a concern about the smoke from the fireplace pavilion. We want to clarify, as Ben did with his neighbor, that the fireplace is an enclosed gas model, does not have wood burning capabilities, will not be producing any smoke. It does not even require a chimney, and the exhaust vents are straight out the back with what we call a B vent, which is similar to what you would have on a typical water heater. Is that my time up or is that 30?
I will extend you one more minute.
Okay, thank you. And the vent is located 10 feet away from the property line. We also just read the letter today that the neighbor recently submitted, and we noted that there's a concern about the avocado tree. My client is also very concerned about the avocado tree. The neighbors love the avocados it produces, and they've hired a landscape architect who's examined the tree structure and the root structure, and he actually is the one who came up with the placement of the accessory structure and the distance we are 6 feet away from the trunk on that side of the tree. So in fact, he will be on site during construction, during the excavation to confirm that roots aren't going to be impacted by our proposal. So we're still both here to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much. Okay. I tell you, as I was out there Saturday talking to your wife, Ms. Mayberry, and then your neighbor down the street, and as I was walking from one place to the other, this project, your neighbors are asking me all kinds of questions. What are they doing? As a severe interest on what is going on with the remodeling of your product. I just wanted to bring that to your attention to let you know that the neighbors are out there and they're drawing all kinds of stuff. But anyway, so I just wanted to bring that to your attention that the neighborhood is concerned about what's going on your property. Okay, I'm going, is there any questions to the applicant and the commissioners?
Madam Chair.
Okay, Commissioner.
Could I ask the architect, what is the square footage of the house today?
Sorry, I'm gonna have to refer to plans. I don't have those numbers memorized, but you have them there. Okay, so the existing habitable area of the house is 3527 square feet, 3,527.
3,500 and what?
And 27,
Okay.
but that doesn't include the garage, the basement, or the covered
Right.
entry. Okay,
Right.
yeah.
And these structures in the backyard, would you describe them as like a pergola?
Yes, the largest one is actually kind of a fancy pergola. It's very open. We call it a pavilion. There's two little storage rooms on the side and a fairly steep, a pitched roof that matches the pitch of the main house, the main pitch. The three other structures are very low, understated, flat, just more open trellis type patio. Trellises, an arbor type of thing with just posts and beams and no roof. And so they're much more understated. There's a little place for a dining table next to the pavilion. And then there's the arbor that's more on Benton. Those are just very low.
Okay. I have no further questions.
Any other questions?
When it's completed, the house will be 3,784 square feet. We're adding 257 square feet to the house with the kitchen and the bathroom.
I thought I saw 446 and 340.
Covered porches.
Oh, I'm sorry, there's basement, there's 189 square feet being added to the basement. So there's a basement that's under the existing kitchen and area. And so since we're adding on to the kitchen, we're adding on to the basement as well.
Well, I'm not concerned, but the living square footage of the main house is going to be improved by how much?
By only 257. But I think the number that you see is adding the 189 square feet of basement that's being added. So I don't know if that's good. Is that correct? Is that what?
Pedro, or
That is correct.
So
Yes,
the added square footage is 257?
257 living space and the 189 basement.
Where did I get this number, 446 and 390?
That's combined. So the 446 is the combination of 257 and 189. The 340 is the covered porch.
Oh,
In the back.
all right. I have no further questions.
Anyone else? Okay.
Yeah, one final question.
Question, Commissioner Parkman?
Yeah, no, that's what you said, the garage wasn't big enough to accommodate a modern vehicle, but the original dimension was 20 feet and now you're going to 26 feet, 3 inches. Parking tanks in there or what?
No, well, so the garage is 20 feet on the outside dimension, so it's 19 foot on the inside. And for a dually truck, not dually, like a cab, what do you have? A pickup truck with extended cab, that's about 19'4". So, so then you can like, yeah, we need to just be able to walk around in front of the cars, so. Other
Understood.
Yeah, okay.
Anyone else? Any questions for the applicant? If not, we will now take comments from the public. Madam Secretary, do you have any members of the public that would like to comment?
There's a member of the public that would like to comment and they're participating via Zoom. Please select the hand icon now, or if you're calling in, please press *9. We'll wait a few seconds. Chair, we do not have any speakers.
Very good. Okay, and with that, I now declare the public hearing closed. Do any commissioner have any final questions of staff? Then moving right along, I entertain a motion to adopt resolution approving the certificate of appropriateness for historic exterior modification application number 2021-03. Second. So moved. Moved by Commissioner Hardy. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Rush. Roll call, please.
Yes, roll call vote. Commissioner Carpenter,
Yes.
Commissioner Hardy,
Yes.
Commissioner Morocco,
No.
Commissioner Pena Sarmiento,
yes,
Commissioner McLaughlin.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, you did yourself. Vice Chair Rush
Aye.
and Chairperson.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes by majority vote with Commissioner Schiff and Fraser absent and Commissioner Warashi dissenting and Chair McLaughlin abstaining.
Okay, congratulations, Xavier. Lots of pictures, lots of pictures. Okay. All right. Okay. All right, this is the time and place to consider item number 7. Historic exterior modification application number 2021-5 for the property located on 804 North Baker. Please note, the decision on this matter is final unless appealed within 10 calendar days. Before we begin, any commissioners have anything they wish to disclose with regard to this item? Yes, I'm visited the property, walked around with.
Commissioner Rashi, I also visited and spoke to Jill.
As did I.
Okay, staff will now do a brief presentation.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. This last item for your consideration is a request to permit exterior modifications to a historic structure located at 804 North Baker Street and known as the Duhart House. Staff is recommending denial of the application. The property is located on the northwest corner, the West Civic Center Drive and North Baker Street intersection in the Washington Square neighborhood. I say intersection, but there's a cul-de-sac that ends from Baker Street. So to the west of the intersection, it's the northwest corner. The property contains an existing one-story Queen Anne style residence that is approximately 1,200 square feet in size with a detached garage on a 0.19 acre site. The Duhart House was placed on the local register in 2001. Is individually listed as number 49 on the Santa Ana registry, and it's categorized as key. The Duhart House is over 130 years old with a built date circa 1890. It has distinctive architectural features of the Queen Anne or Queen Anne Revival architectural style. Specifically, this one-story cottage is a simplified example of a cross-gabled subtype of the Queen Anne style, characterized by the side gable wing bordered by a front porch. So you can kind of see that in this photo here. And then the projecting front gabled wing on the side. Despite the alterations throughout the years, the present design remains true to its late 19th century origins. The Duhart House is significant under criterion 1 in that it embodies the distinguishing characteristics of an architectural building period associated with a specific period of development, and as a building that was connected with a business for use that once was common and is now rare. It's characteristic of a significant period in the history of Santa Ana, which is the agricultural era, and is associated with significant persons in the city, which is the Duhart Kroll family, which are longtime residents of Santa Ana, which were longtime residents of Santa Ana. I'm not sure if there's any family members still alive. In addition, the property may be eligible for listing in the National Register of Historic Places if more research is conducted in its association with Santa Ana's agricultural past. The proposed exterior modifications include the demolition of a character-defining front entry porch along the primary elevation. The porch is proposed to be rebuilt and extended approximately 2 feet and 8 inches towards the front or east elevation past the existing front elevation footprint. The reconstructed porch would include like-for-like wood materials, which include the columns, the cornice, and the balusters, and would be clad in a composition shingle and would be rebuilt to its original height of approximately 11 feet. The proposed scope of work also includes a new 46 square foot rear porch cover and a 161 square foot addition to accommodate the expansion of the existing bedroom, which will include 2 new closets and a new bathroom. The expansion would also accommodate a new utility or pantry room, a closet and a half bath towards the rear of the property. A bedroom expansion and new utility pantry area would extend approximately 23 feet towards the rear or the west and approximately 15 feet towards the north. The new addition would be approximately 13 feet in height, which is lower than the existing building height of 18 feet. These next couple of slides provides the drawings provided by the architect. This one here on the screen provides the existing proposed site plan to make it easier for the commission to identify the areas that are affected. The areas are in red. The area in red, I guess, to the right of your screen would be the area that's proposed to be rebuilt. To the top of the screen, we have an area of an addition and an area of interior remodel. The interior remodel is not shown in red because it's within the existing footprint of the house. And then also included as part of that red area is a new rear porch proposed. Up on the screen is the existing floor plan, which shows the existing square footage of 1243 and includes an existing square footage of the front porch of 92 square feet. The proposed floor plan is on the screen now. Again, to make it easier for the commission to understand the additions areas and affected areas are highlighted in red. The new total area for square footage would be 1404 square feet. And then the new porch addition area would be 193 square feet. So the remodel areas are also included on that table to the left-hand side. The next 2 slides will show the proposed elevations. So you can see along north, south, east, and west how it's going to affect the elevations. The first one on the screen is going to include the north and the south. So the top screen shows the rear porch area. And the next slide shows the west elevation and the east elevations that show the proposed rebuilt porch along the front. And then the proposed addition area with kind of the rear patio along the west elevation. The proposed exterior modifications are considered a rehabilitation project, and as such were evaluated against the 10 standards of Secretary of Interior standards for treatment. Staff determined that the proposed project is in conflict with a number of applicable standards. Throughout thorough review of the request indicates that the project does not comply with standards number 2, 3, and 9. Specifically, analysis of the project indicates that the proposed front porch expansion would be incompatible and inconsistent with existing architectural elements that reflect the original Queen Anne style construction. Proposed modifications would effectively change the historic appearance of the structure along the primary elevation, making it inconsistent with the character-defining features of Queen Anne. Additionally, extending the porch towards the front elevation would detract from the side gable and wing design and introduce a replacement that deviates from the existing porch design. Lastly, the expansion would alter the roof line along the primary elevation, which would modify the front elevation massing, which includes the side gable wing massing, altering the historic elevation. An additional review of the proposed modification is provided up on the screen to show kind of a period of significance for the Queen Anne. We showed that it's primarily when it was most commonly built, and that includes the period of 1880 through 1910. The character defining features of this specific Duhart house are its prominent partial width front porch, its decorative porch balustrades, and the decorative column brackets. So it doesn't have very many character defining features for being kind of a small cottage and associated with larger agricultural significance. The addition and the expansion would be something that compromises the building's historic integrity, because when we're dealing with something that doesn't have many character defining features, we want to make sure that we preserve them in kind or like for like. In this case, an appropriate replacement of the porch would be rebuilding exactly the same square footage, replicating the millwork for the balustrades and column and the front porch extension, but but not extending past its original front elevation because there's not much there. And once you start altering it, it distracts from the main primary elevation. With that, staff recommends that the Historic Commission adopt a resolution denying the certificate of appropriateness for historic exterior modification application number 2021-5. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer questions at this time.
Thank you so much, Pedro. Any questions of staff? I have a question. How many of these style homes do we have in San Antonio?
That's not something I have information on, but if I had to guess, not very many Queen Anne homes, at least certainly not 130 years old.
That's on there. And my next question is, with this, you know, it's the Queen Anne style, the late Victorian style. Number one, if these modifications were done, it's no longer a key, it's off our register, is that correct?
It has the potential to make it ineligible for, I guess, further listing. When it was put on the list in 2001, there was a detailed analysis provided, and that was included in the report, which highlights not only the history, its association with the agricultural area, association with the time when the city was incorporated and became the county seat, but also its, its minimal but prominent features, the Queen Anne style. So the minute you start kind of altering what made it historic to begin with, it does have the potential to lose its historic eligibility, potentially risking it being removed from the register.
And because it's key, it's significant with the architectural style and the events, you know, farmland and so forth. Is that correct?
That's
And
correct.
that's why it's moved to key, which is our second highest level for declaration of this on our historic homes.
That's correct. The report also identified its potential for national designation as well, with further research in its agricultural roots. So, I mean, Orange County was all agriculture at some point, so this does highlight the significance of this specific cottage and the significance to the city.
Thank you so much. Anyone else?
Chair.
Vice Chair Rush.
Pedro, I know that in the remarks, there's commentary that the garage is being rehabbed. Out there and spoke to the occupant, David Julie. He said there's no change proposed to the garage.
I don't remember listing that as a project description. I do know that they're not intending to alter the garage at all, actually, or rehab it. It's just to the main house.
Because on the notice that was posted on the front of the property, it indicates the garage is going to be rehabbed. So that was a mistake.
I'm sorry, have you got a copy of that clarification? Yeah, if it was, Vice Chair, it was a mistake. There's no changes to the garage, just the main house.
Okay. And what did you say the square footage of the house is?
The square footage of the house existing is 1,243.
43?
Anyone else? Questions of staff?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I have some questions.
Thank you.
Peter, could you refresh me, the size of the existing front porch, the width and length?
Sure. Believe, let's hope that there's dimensions on here. So the existing front porch is about 92 square feet. So it's, I think, approximately, and then the length of it, it's approximately like 16 feet in length, so wide. Expansion is proposing at approximately just shy of 3 feet. So I think the overall depth of it would be 8 feet, and the length of it would stay the same. But because you're adding the additional 2 and some change feet, you're increasing the total square footage of the front porch to 193, from 92 to 193.
Thank you, understood. But I was just kind of looking at the ADA ordinance for, I'm not trying to expert or really know what I'm interpreting here. but I guess minimum to do a 180-degree turn, maybe even 360, I'm not sure, but in 60 inches square. So it looks like existing front porch kind of meets those dimensions. Just wanted to note that.
Sure.
Anyone else?
Yes.
Sure.
I can appreciate the owner's position with such an older home, wanting to modernize. And I can appreciate the position in not wanting to approve it for the reasons given. But is there anything they could do to modify their plan to meet your requirements?
Unfortunately, their desire to expand the front porch in such a prominent corner location, no. I understand that the porch is dilapidated. I've even seen on some of the photos that it's in poor condition, so I understand they need to rebuild it. The standards and the guidelines do acknowledge that they're okay to do so, and actually, if they wanted to rebuild it, it wouldn't need your approval. Administratively, we could approve it as long as it's like. So they could rebuild it and make it safe as long as it's the same footprint. The minute they're expanding is when we're in commission territory and do have to apply the standards pretty strictly.
And in addition to that, I understand the front porch. But the additions to the house, is that an issue for you guys or what?
Distance to the house.
The additions to the
Oh,
house?
no. Yeah, the rear additions and the interior renovations are kind of textbook additions to these historic houses. They're in keeping with the standards. And I think the staff report made some note of that. So absent the porch extension, we would have no problem recommending approval for the HEMA. It's really the front porch extension that's kind of having us deny the proposal or recommend a no, excuse me.
Understood. So the bottom line is if they can modify that porch to meet your requirements or preserve it, then we're all good to go.
Correct.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
Right now, the porch itself is not as deep as, say, the bedroom right next to it, right? Is, in other words, if you drew a line straight down the front, it's not the same, the porch would be set back. What happens if they made it the same as the bedroom? Brought it out some, but not as far as they wanted. That's question number one. Question number two is, are there other options? In other words, can we reduce it to stay a contributing home, but still keep it on the register? Is that an option with the modification?
I think with this image, it's a little hard to see the landing area for the front porch. From the photo, it looks like the overhang is right abutting the front elevation of that wing. So I'm not sure, maybe you're suggesting extending the flatwork area with the steps possibly. I think there may be an opportunity to consider that. But for the most part, the requirements are replacing like for like. To your second question about maybe lowering its designation, it really has no effect on this because whether you're a contributed key landmark, you're still subject to the same standards and we'd be in the same place. And so, and really, it would make no sense just given its significant history in association with the city.
So what I'm understanding is that we would, if the applicant went through with this, and would say that, whatever the council decide, let's say they appeal it, and they get it, we're losing off the register an historical site, is that correct? There's potential of losing a historical site.
There's very specific criteria in our chapter 30, which is our historic code that kind of outlines specific situations where a house could be delisted. I believe that actually that might be a public hearing opportunity for the commission as well. But there's unfortunately very limited options when it comes to rehabbing this porch. Maintaining the original dimensions is unfortunately the only solution for this one.
Minister, I have an additional question. Peter, I'm curious, the new construction at the side and the back of the property, the part that is a different height, can you explain why they're not meeting the same height? Is there a reason for that?
Let me see if I can find an appropriate photo here, and I think this might be the best one. This west elevation. So when it comes to making additions to historic properties, unfortunately, it's a little subjective. So you ask one commissioner, and it might be different than the next commissioner, but the rule of thumb is not to kind of overshadow the original construction. So a lot of architects design it to be clearly subordinate to the original massing. Sometimes they include a different variation of roof style that's still kind of consistent, but not quite the same. Oftentimes we also have homeowners that do choose to extend maybe a similar roof pitch. But one of the standards we have in the Secretary of Interior standards is to not replicate or create a false sense of history. So that's why it's subjective. If you're starting to extend, say, an existing gable to make it look like it was part of the original, you're effectively creating a false sense of history, which is against the standard. So in certain situations, we've had HEMAs come through with flat roofs towards the rear. In this case, the architect and designer chose to go with this variation, which is still kind of consistent with, say, the front porch design, its original one, but it doesn't overshadow its original cottage massing of it. So,
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff?
Yes,
Vice Chair.
Pedro, if I hear you, you're saying that this project would in fact be perfectly acceptable if the front porch was being replaced like for like, exactly as it is today.
That's correct.
Okay. Even though you indicate, and we all know that this is somewhat really subjective in terms of what we're doing. This isn't 2 + 2 is 4. Are you saying that there's absolutely there is zero compromise available for this applicant on the front porch? They couldn't have a floor space bigger and keep the roof the same size. There's zero compromise. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct. The compromise when it comes to rear additions is you can't see them, which is why we allow flat roofs, varied roofs, as long as they're consistent.
And if you're standing in front of this house, how would someone know that the depth has increased 2 feet?
It has more to do with the fact that the porch is one of the only really significant things of the house. And so you know, the rule of thumb for historic preservation is that you don't alter it at all, really, even if it's 2 feet. So we do allow and are actually flexible with homeowners wanting to kind of rebuild their porches, again, not having to go through permission review. But the minute you're extending it past its original kind of design, it's affecting its historic integrity. I know it doesn't seem like much, 2 feet, but it does when you consider it with its side gable variant. There's not much about the house that's architecturally prominent. So you have the one feature that makes it prominent and makes it the Queen Anne style being affected, and it doesn't affect the historic integrity.
But it's my understanding what's driving this is that the existing porch is so narrow that it's almost unusable. And one of the standards are that houses are allowed to change somewhat over time. Is that not part of the standard?
I think that's standard number 1, correct?
Okay, anyone else for staff?
Yes, I have a comment.
Go ahead.
In my opinion, the 5 foot, and I think it might be a little bit wider than 5, like 5'2" or 5'3", 5 foot 3 inches or 5 foot 2 inches. I'm not sure if I'm correct there, but the 5 foot depth, that's pretty standard, and it is fairly roomy. So that's my opinion.
Commissioner Harvey, are you saying that
Hold on, let me recognize you. Okay, this is for staff. No commission.
Let me clarify that. Let me extend that comment, please. Can I do that?
Yes.
For that period.
You're directed to staff.
It's my opinion that that's in standard and fairly roomy depth of the front porch for that period. That's my opinion.
Okay. Any other questions for staff?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Carpenter.
again, the sticking point seems to be the porch. And is the owner unwilling to modify their design? Is that the real problem?
We hopefully have the owner here today, but before taking the application, we do kind of a screening to inform the applicants whether they would be meeting standards or not. We did inform them that we would recommend it now if they chose to move forward. They did choose to move forward, and so here we are.
Understood. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for staff? Okay, moving on. Madam Secretary, have we received any written communication?
Yes, 3 letters of communication were received. Those were all distributed to the commissioners earlier today, and those are on our website.
Okay, thank you so much. With that, now declare the public hearing open with the applicant. Margaret Langborn, do you have any questions? And you, sir?
Yes, I'm Tom Morrissey, architect of record. Miss Lang had to leave, so she asked that I speak on behalf of the project.
Okay, and on this, 3 minutes, is that correct? 3 minutes.
Okay, I'll be very brief. Madam Chair, members of the commission, appreciate being here today and just pile on with your comments on Mr. Gomez. He's been a pleasure to work with throughout the process. I think you've all fleshed out the issues here. It's regarding the porch, and the owner is willing to compromise on her design. I think the issue is 5 feet is, Commissioner Hardy is correct. 5 feet does meet the requirements for ADA accessibility and turning around, but once you put other people and chairs and tables out there, then it becomes problematic. So that's why they wanted a little extra space to be able to move around. So in that regard, the other thing I wanted to mention is she is the second owner of the property. Ms. Margaret Lang is 102 years old. So the second owner of the property has quite a bit of history there and is still around and would like to enjoy that front porch. I think in conclusion, I just look forward to coming to some sort of resolution so that she can move forward on the project just because time is of the essence for her. So either way, she really wants to move forward with some sort of resolution today. And I think Mr. David Mayo is available. If he wants to make any additional comments.
Yes, Tom has filled out
Okay.
a form. Thank you. Next, Mr. David Mayo, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and board members. I'm just going to briefly bring up a little quick tale of who the owners are now, which are the second owners. Margaret Lang, who is previously mentioned, is 102, and this was her family home. They came from, there were 3 brothers, all from the Basque region. They had come out here to America. They were sheep herders, and they had one of the largest flocks of sheep back in the early 1800s. And they had ran these sheep over the borders in Arizona, and that's how they made their fortune. And at that time, the brothers had split up. One brother decided to become into the agricultural business, and they had purchased what is now known mostly as Washington Square. So their property line kind of ran from Civic Center, which was 8th Street, almost to Bristol and Flower and up to Washington. That was their family-owned land. I believe they were growing walnuts, and that was the original main structure on the property for the family. Margaret Lang was a longtime resident, had grew up here. She was Miss Santa Ana in 1938, and so that's some of her prominent family fame. The other brothers had moved on around the country. One of the interesting quick stories was one of the brothers moved to Argentina, where he had a couple children out of wedlock. Turns out the first one, her name was Ava Perón. And that was part of that whole family legacy. So it's very interesting, the family lore that goes with this house. But again, we just are looking for, I'm currently going to be the builder, and we are residents of the property trying to maintain it. It's kind of held together by termites right now, and we're hoping that we can get this so we can put it back to something that looks much nicer in neighborhood. Right now, we're just in need of a lot of repair, which includes like a lovely bathroom that was part of the original service porch. It kind of, you know, if you don't watch your step, you'll tumble clear to the outside walls and floors are tilted Hilton. But with these repairs, it'll bring the standard back up to a very nice home here in Santa, and that's what we're hoping for, is to preserve it like for like as best we can and still make it usable for us and for Margaret Lang before she passes. So thank you for your time. I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public?
Are any speakers participating in Zoom that would like to comment, please press the hand icon now. Or if you're calling in, please press *9. I'll wait a few seconds. Chair, we do not have any speakers.
Okay, thank you. And with that, I know our public hearing closed. And is any of the commissioners out there? Yes.
For the record, I was able to pull up the plans and the dimensions show 5'11" for the depth, just to clarify that.
What's that?
5'11", 5 feet and 11 inches for the depth of the existing porch now.
Okay. Commissioners? Okay. My comment. Okay. This commission is guardians of our historic preservation history. Okay. And as guardians, we've got to protect these properties, especially when they're at a level of key that's coming there. And if we don't, what good is this commission? I put that to my fellow commissioners. In 2011, when I retired from the bank, until COVID, I taught Eastside Christian education at Girls Elementary School. Okay, and in order for our class to be there, we have to release the kids on paper right at that cul-de-sac where it comes on. And, you know, we would have to park there to bring the kids from the school into our bus. And I would see them. And in the yard during this time, there were chairs out there in the front yard. A lot of chairs are out in the front yard on that street for them to eat. And I'm going, okay, we have a porch. They purchased the porch. They purchased the house back, you know, in the 1800s or whenever it was purchased and so forth. Porch was no problem. Okay, when they put it on historic register, the porch was no problem. Okay, and we listed that because of the style of the home and it's significant to the history of Santa Ana. We put it on as key. And we don't, you know, I don't know about you, but I don't take those categorizations lightly, not at all. Okay, so now we have a problem that's going to alter this Queen Anne. It's the only one I know that was left in the settlements on the east side of our city. This beautiful Queen Anne home. Very rare in our city. And now they want to take it where it becomes practically off our register. And our history, part of our history, is now faded away. So with that, I'm you know, I for one will be supporting the path of the staff recommendation of denying this. And maybe the applicant can come back, you know, and modify the plan of those plans so that we can. In fact, I have letters from Tom Lutz of Washington Square, who said, I approve the exterior modification, but not at the expense of its losing its key designation. And this is from Tom from the Washington Square Neighborhood Association this afternoon. So, you know, we're looking at this as guardians of our historic structures, you know, and saying, do we want to lose part of our history, and which is a major key categorization. So that's where I am. Anyone else? Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes, I'd like to comment. I can fully empathize with the owners and wanting to modernize the home. I think that's a very fair thing to have happen. I can also understand staff's perspective with the porch being the prominent feature. I would agree with that. The rest of the house is nothing special, quite frankly. But I think in all consideration, if we can work with the owners to meet staff's recommendation on that patio, or of course, to maintain it in its original condition, I'm all for getting this approved, because again, I can fully empathize with them that they need to improve that house. It's pretty clear by their pictures that it's not in the most greatest condition. And I think, quite frankly, the improvement would be improvement to the neighborhood. Looking at the pictures of the home, you know, quite frankly, it does look a little bit dilapidated, and that's my opinion. And I think staff, if they can work with the owner to get that patio porch modified, I'm all for it. Thank you.
What I would like to entertain is that we, hold on.
Would be continued.
Continue.
That's
We
what-
can continue, right?
Yes. we can
Right.
continue.
We can continue this, okay, for what, 60
We
days?
can continue it to the next meeting. If
Right.
The next meeting is within 30 days. We can continue it to, we have a choice of meetings, so we can continue to, you set the dates.
To our next virtual, which would be in September.
That's the next.
Yeah,
meeting.
the next virtual. And that, you know, continue where staff will meet with applicant and work out that. Exactly, Conchina. Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
This has been time. I believe the applicant would like an opportunity to speak as to the recommendation on the continuance. So if you want to entertain allowing the applicant to speak about continuance. Obviously, the commission has the authority to do what it wants to do, what it needs to do with this application. The applicant, I believe, would like to speak on the continuance.
But he's not the applicant.
He represents the applicant.
He's representing the applicant. Okay. John, am I okay? I yield to the attorney.
Chair Christie, okay to ask you to clarify that question?
With that, since he's not the applicant, someone's not the applicant, Steve's down.
As a representative of the applicant, yes, you may speak.
Okay, very good. Okay. Huh? Did you? Okay.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Yeah, as I mentioned, the owner would like to move forward today with the recommendation. So if building the porch exactly as it is today, she's agreeable to that.
Okay, we'll do a continuance. Would you think skeptical?
Well, time is really of the essence for her, just because of her mother's health. She wanted to really get this project moving forward. So,
Well, the motion before us is to deny it. So if we do a continuance, how do we vote?
Madam Chair, what I'm hearing, if I'm hearing the applicant represent correctly, is that you are no longer looking to extend the porch and is going to remodel the porch as an existing addition
to be the Secretary of Interior and want to move forward with an addition to the house, and it would be something that can meet the requirement of the Interior and Second Standard. Correct. So that's what I'm hearing, is that the applicant is agreeable not to make any modifications to the porch that would go beyond where it is right now, except to recondition it, and then proceed with the addition that is at the rear portion of the house, which would not have an impact on the historical aspect of the structure.
Okay, I need help here in formulating, because what's before us and it's agendized is that I am correct on this, right, John? Because it is agendized as denial of this request, right? According to good old,
Robert's Rules of Order.
well, in addition to Robert's rules, but the other one.
If I may.
Brownette, thank you. I can be the Brown. Okay,
If I may, maybe I can help formulate.
would you mind? I would be ever so grateful.
Yes, the recommendation, the committee, potential motion could be is that the committee approve the proposed application with the condition that the porch cannot be modified beyond the existing footprint, but may be remodeled to maintain its current existing characteristics and features.
Okay. Okay, say that. Okay, you got it. You got it, okay. Thank you.
I would like to make the motion that we approve the modification with the stipulation that the front porch maintains like for like.
Is that it?
Parallel elephant.
Thank you. Moved by Commissioner Marashi,
I'll second.
second by Vice Chair Marashi. Okay, roll call, please.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
before we take roll call, can I ask our city attorney for clarification on whether that action requires the item to come back, or whether it could be a resolution of approval without having to come back to the commission?
See, I knew there was a hiccup. I knew that there was going to be a hiccup.
Chair and Commissioners, the matter is properly agendized before you tonight for your consideration. It is the staff's recommendation as noted on the agenda. That recommendation is for your consideration. If you choose to take a different course, that is within your discretion tonight in terms of the overall scope of the matter being agendized.
So my motion would be done.
Yes, that's permissible.
And,
Just, I'd like to also note, if we are going to go down the route of an approval without that component, that the current resolution, I don't think has any SQL language in it.
That's correct. The current resolution does not have any SQL language because it's not consistent with the standards, or it's not a project.
So then could we on the record add a SQL section?
Yes, that would have to be part of the motion.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, thank you for the clarification.
I would like to amend that we add the SQL language to the motion.
SQL finding. Moved by Commissioner Marashi, Vice Chair.
Yes, I'll second it.
Okay, roll call, please.
Excuse me, Madam Chairman, real quick, so I'm clear as to what we're voting on and how the vote's gonna go, because I understand if we're voting on the new motion, correct?
Right.
And a yes vote would mean we're gonna approve the new motion, which allows them which keeps the patio the same, but allows them to continue with the additions, correct?
Right.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, so I have a motion by Vice Chair Russ, Marashi, and who seconded that, please?
Vice Chair Russ.
Vice Chair Russ, all right. Okay, roll call vote. Commissioner Carpenter,
Yes.
Commissioner Hardy,
Yes.
Commissioner Marashi,
Yes.
Commissioner Pena Sarmiento,
Yes.
Huh? That didn't sound like her.
Yes.
There you go. That's awesome.
Commissioner McLaughlin.
Aye.
Chair Christie.
Yes.
Motion passes by majority vote with Commissioner Schiff and Fraser absent.
Okay. Congratulations on moving. Thank you. Okay. All right, moving right along. Oh, great, here we go. The new chair. Okay, of the new chair, which will become effective as of September 2nd, which is our next regularly scheduled meeting. We will now take up nominations for chair. Commissioner Morrison.
I would like to nominate Commissioner Rush. For those of you to the new commission, Commissioner Rush is a local historian with considerable knowledge of Santa Ana architecture and has been given walking tours for over 29 years. His commitment to history and historic preservation includes 30 years of the Santa Ana Historic Preservation Society, co-chair, which predated the HRC. Board member of Preserve OC, received Pioneer and Preservation Award from the mayor. So I'd like to see HRC chairman added to that list. Considering Commissioner Rush helped save the Spurgeon Clock Tower while chairing the committee to do so, I can't wait to see what he does with HRC.
Is there a second to the nomination of Commissioner Rush?
I'll say.
Second by Commissioner Carpenter. Okay, any other nominations? No? Call for a vote, roll call please.
Yes, roll call votes. Commissioner Carpenter,
Yes.
Commissioner Hardy,
Yes.
Commissioner Rashi.
Yeah.
Commissioner Pena Sarmiento,
Yes.
Commissioner McLaughlin,
Aye.
Vice Chair Rush,
I don't have to abstain. Aye.
Chair Christie,
Yeah.
Chair Christie.
Yeah.
Yes. Motion passes by majority vote with Commissioner Schiff and Fraser absent.
Congratulations. Now it's time to take up selection of vice chair for the 2021-22 term. The floor is now open for nominations for vice
Madam Chairman,
chair.
I would like to, I'd like to nominate Ed Marashi. And I hope this doesn't appear sycophantic, but anyway, I'd like to nominate Ed. Ed, of course, a resident of Floral Park, past president of Floral Park Neighborhood Association, lives in a historic home, tried to get it on the historic register. The city told him no, it's too much of a wreck. So he had it rehabilitated and then it got passed. And so he is on the register. He belongs to both the local Santa Ana Historical Preservation Society, state California Preservation Foundation, and the National Trust as well. So he's an electronic engineer by profession, so he brings his technology to our commission and will do a fine job.
Thank you, and I'd like to second this nomination. Okay, are there any other nominations for vice chair? Hearing none, nominations are closed. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Carpenter,
Yes.
Commissioner Hardy.
Yes.
Commissioner Pena Sarmiento,
Yes.
Commissioner McLaughlin,
Aye.
Vice Chair Rush,
Aye.
Chair Christie.
Yes.
Motion passes by majority vote with Commissioner Schiff and
Congratulations. Okay, I hope you guys will continue the celebration of clapping and after the approval to make this continue to be a fun committee, okay? I'm charging you with that, okay? That's okay. That's what makes us special. Okay. Here I go. Congratulations. Okay, next, on the second item under administrative matters is the Maine Historic Park Walk Project. Staff will give a brief presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This matter was discussed as a discussion item by the commission at the meeting of May 13th this year. The commission discussed the concept of a potential park walk project that can commemorate historical events or places along South Main Street. The project, the commission can only consider projects that are either the Mills Act historical designation or modification to historical projects. But we feel that this is a concept that is worthy of at least exploring because it does tie in with some of the work that staff is doing in the upcoming zoning code update. We are looking to complete historical surveys of the 5 focus areas within the city for historical designations, historical events, as well as potential demarcation of and how to celebrate those historical events. So therefore, we would like to commission to evaluate employing your authority under section 12 of your bylaws is to have 3 members be a part of an ad hoc committee to explore further the concept and bring it back in the future for the commission to consider by coordinating with staff working on the survey. At least the survey portion of it is something that we're already doing. Should this ever be something that transforms into a physical capital improvement type project or require resources and expenditure of the city, that can be the concept can be refined and brought back to the commission and then be forwarded to the city council for consideration for further implementation. We believe that this is a worthwhile project that should be explored, and we already do work that can be coordinated with the ad hoc. Therefore, we request tonight that you appoint 3 members under the authority allowed by commission under the bylaws to work with staff, to coordinate staff, complete some of the survey work, and then we'll come back with a future recommendation for your discussion, potentially forward to the city council.
Okay, thank you. I would like to nominate, if they would accept it, Commissioner Sarmiento, Commissioner Hardy, and Commissioner Carter to as the ad hoc committee for this project. I'd be happy to accept. Thank you.
Yes, that'd be fine. Thank you.
Okay.
I would love to serve well. Thank you.
You're welcome. Since you brought this to us. Yeah. Okay.
So being ad hoc, thank you for that, and being ad hoc, staff will be contacting you and we'll have meetings accordingly, meetings as needed. So thank you for volunteering.
We got to vote on this. Roll call, please.
Yes, thank you for the motion, Chair Christie. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, roll call vote. Commissioner Carpenter,
Yes.
Commissioner Hardy,
Yes.
Commissioner Marashi,
Yes.
Commissioner Pena Sarmiento,
Yes.
Commissioner McLaughlin,
Aye.
Vice Chair Rush,
Aye.
Chair Christie.
Yes.
Motion passes by majority vote with Commissioners Schiff and Fraser absent.
Congratulations, guys. Okay, that concludes the business calendar. Moving on to staff comments. One of the comments, I hope that in the presentation would be what was sent to us by Ollie. Executive Director in on the follow-up?
Yes, Ali will be providing that follow-up. I just want to, before Ali does that, to introduce our new planning manager, Ms. Fabiola Azalea. She joined us 3 weeks ago, on week number 4, and I'm very happy to have her as the replacement for a previous planning manager, as we do have a lot of work that needs to be done in the areas of planning, but also in terms of historical preservation and moving the city forward. So with that, if you'd like to say a few words.
Thank you. It's so great to be here and getting to know you guys, especially because it's the first meeting in person. So I have the opportunity to meet you all here tonight. And I'm just very happy to be part of the Santa Ana team. It's comprised by really good professionals, and you guys have been working with them. And I'm just really happy to be a part of. I look forward to working with the Historical Commission.
Thank you. That was it from staff and at this point.
Thank you, commissioners. Good evening. Before I get into the First American project, just briefly, we did send you some information on some items that you had requested updates on during the last meeting. Via email, we sent you information about 718 South Broadway, as well as information for nominating properties to the California National Registers. So that single email contained information on both. If more information is requested on 718 South Broadway, Pedro standing right here can answer them, but in a nutshell, work began and was permitted starting in 2018, and due to COVID, there were some delays, but the project was recently wrapped up and final. So Pedro, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no further work taking place on that site.
That's correct.
Thank you. And then secondly, we did find updated information for adding properties to the California National Registers. We do maintain a very informative and regularly updated webpage about historic preservation in Santa Ana. Our web pages are constantly being updated, and this was part of that information. We also provided contact information for state historians as well. That's the latest and greatest that we could find. If you have any further questions about that, we'd be happy to answer questions or refer you to the website, which we always promote to the public, as well as through social media and other programs that we have. So with that, if there's no questions on those topics, I'd be happy to share photos as requested about the First American project that's happening in downtown. Thanks, Pedro. So just as some background for this commission, the project was fully entitled by December 2019, went to Planning Commission in October of 2019, followed by City Council in December 2019, and was thereafter entitled. The entitlements required a thorough analysis of the old Orange County Title Company building to determine whether the facade preservation alternative was feasible. So basically toward the tail end of the project, the developer and local preservation groups struck a deal, if you want to call it, to basically preserve 50 feet of facade of the old Orange County Title building along Main Street and another 50 feet along 5th Street, incorporate that into the project if a careful selective demolition revealed that the building beneath the 1970s cladding was in sound enough shape to be incorporated into the project. So in order to memorialize that, the conditions of approval were updated to reflect a very robust sort of consultation process with historic preservation specialists and notification to historic preservation interest groups in Orange County. And thereafter, beginning in March, selective demolition began. There were a few members of this body present, as well as local interested parties who were also there. And what the developer thought would take an entire week actually was completed in about 2 days, because upon initially removing the first panels, they discovered that the building beneath those panels was largely intact. And then an engineering analysis revealed that it was structurally sound enough to be incorporated into the project. If it was found to be structurally sound enough, then it had to become the project. So basically they, after 2 days, said, you know what, we have enough of what we need. We don't want to reveal any more panels because that would further expose the building to unfortunately the elements and vandalism. So they left those panels in place, boarded it back up. And then fast forward to June of 2020, in the heart of the pandemic, we held a virtual meeting with interest groups to go over the result of the findings of their reports, that basically it was in sound enough condition to be preserved. We also prepared meeting minutes from that meeting and emailed it to the interested parties. And lastly, committed with the developer agreeing to sharing the final sets of plans from the actual demolition and shoring that is being plan checked right now by the city's building division, to share those plans with the interested parties as well, so they can see exactly how and what steps are going to be taken to prevent the remaining portions for preservation from not collapsing into the basement of that building during demolition and construction. So fast forward to May of 2021, about a year later, there was a request for some photos from that March 2020 field act. Long story short, we can go to the next slide. So this was the historic preservation alternatives facades that were approved by City Council in the event that the building had been found to be structurally sound. So this going forward will be the project, because the report indicated that it could be incorporated. So you have basically 50 feet of original facade along Main Street and along 5th Street being incorporated into the new building. And that volume will be basically 2.5 stories tall, as is the original building, and will serve as the lobby and leasing area and essentially front door of the project from that street corner. Next slide. Thank you. So we began that morning. It was off and on showers, but it was a pretty neat day. The developer hired a professional photographer to document this process. And they initially began by cutting into these metal panels that had been essentially glued onto the building, or what they feared had been glued onto the building. But once they removed the first panel, they actually found, much to everyone's surprise, that there were these brackets that had been about a foot off from the original facade that had actually prevented those panels from being glued right onto the concrete facade. So that was a major sort of good news initially. So what you're seeing in these first few photos is that sort of work being done on the left, and then the initial segment after it had been removed. So with that view, we were able to see, okay, the good news is that these panels are about a foot off the original building. Let's see what comes next. So what came next was we removed further panels and found that not only were those brackets basically continuously off from the main facade, but that the original relief work and sort of botanical patterns and column work on the building had been largely preserved. So it hadn't crumbled. It was actually in very good condition overall. Now what you're seeing on the left is a detailed view of those botanic patterns. And this is typical of that era's architecture. And then on the right, what you see is a farther view from standing across 5th Street. Now, the reason I included the photo on the right is that what we also found, much to everyone's surprise, was that beneath that initial column, if you're viewing it from the top of the building down, you hit this sort of brickwork. And that brickwork was actually to preserve the original single glass pane windows that were behind the brickwork. So if you were to go inside the building, the glass was still there. The bricks were there to preserve it. To meet modern building codes, it would be very difficult to retain those windows, but nonetheless, they were very well preserved. What we also found after removing a portion of the base of that brick toward the bottom where those individuals are standing was that the original, essentially, I think it was marble or granite base along the building, similar to historic City Hall, had unfortunately been removed. And that had been removed basically to make room for that brickwork that unfortunately was glued directly onto the building. So right now, the historic preservation architect and specialists, there's 2 that the developer hired. They are local, essentially are working to see how they could tastefully add that base back without quote unquote Mickey Mouse in. They want it to look terribly fake and not original, but at the same time pay homage to that sort of style and the original work that was there, similar to Old City Hall. Next slide. So by the end of the second day, now this is the view looking catty corner from 5th Main back toward the building. So they had actually gone toward that pediment that faces Main Street and removed further sections beneath the pediment to sort of look up. And what they found again was largely very well preserved sections of the original building, again, because that pattern of bracketing it off and preserving the facade had been carried through almost uniformly on that upper portion, but again, that brickwork along the base had been carried through and had basically resulted in the complete loss of the original granite or marble base that was there. And so on the right-hand photo, you're seeing a view from the city's parking structure a little bit higher up. You can see that these portions were still well preserved. So long story short, even just visually looking at it, both historic preservation architects, one of whom worked for many years for a very prominent firm out of Pasadena, ARG, who since started her own business. Both she and another historic preservation architect from Riverside both felt very strongly that even just based on what they saw after 2 days, there was no need to continue further. And the reports were subsequently prepared and shared with interested parties, like I said, in June, and basically lended support to proceeding with this alternative of preserving the facade. And that's basically it. There were some videos as well from that day. Unfortunately, due to technology changes, they're no longer compatible with Windows, but we do have some photos. We do have many photos. We have some videos that hopefully one day we can recover as well. So that's basically the photos from that selective demolition. We call it the peel back. And again, they were boarded up, and there was no need to proceed further simply because there was no desire to expose it to vandalism or the elements. And that's it.
Thank you. Any questions? No?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
What's the status of the project?
Thank you. I think there's actually a next slide. Sorry. So current status is they're in plan check for multi-fronts. So basically, the shoring, demolition, and grading permits are close to issuance. The remainder, what we would call the superstructure, anything being built above ground, the new building, that is in a separate plan check course with the building division. It was submitted a little bit later. First, we got to get this stuff out of the way. But that's still going along. The applicant, to be totally honest, has Toll Brothers has acquired the property, but nonetheless, because of COVID, they were significantly reevaluating their assets across the country. And much to our delight, late last year, they notified me that they were going to move forward with this project 100%. So it's still in plan check. They still have every intent of building it and the smaller building across 5th Street. They also need to complete a lot merger process because essentially there's like 10 different legal lots on that city block that need to be merged before a permit can be issued for anything new to be built.
That'll take 18 months.
What was that?
That'll take 18 months.
You know, those can take a little bit less time from our experience if they hire a qualified professional and they, pay for accelerated review fees. So we should be able to accommodate that in a shorter amount of time.
Any other questions? No, thank you all.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, I just want to congratulate Commissioner Rush and Commissioner Rossi on the nomination. Congratulations. That's it.
Okay, moving on, we have starting with Commissioner McLaughlin. Any comments?
I'll just say congratulations to Jim on chair and on vice chair. And thank you for your services, chair, for the last 2 years. We appreciate that. And with that, everybody have a safe and happy 4th of July. See you in September.
Vice chair.
Thank you, and thank you to all of you who voted and showed your confidence in me. Welcome, next chair. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ed, for making the nomination. And I look forward to serving with you, with each of you. I brought this book to show you that I just bought recently. It's called Restoring Your Historic House, a comprehensive guide for homeowners, a wonderful resource. The great part is that in the back of it, it's got a whole bunch of different firms listed for all kinds of different things that you need to have done, from purchasing windows to all kinds of things. And of course, these types of books come out from time to time, but of course they become dated over time because the firms that were listed 25 and 30 years ago, sometimes they're not still in business. But anyway, I bought it off of, I forget if it was Amazon or avebooks.com, but anyway, an excellent book, recommended to staff, maybe as a resource, et cetera. What else did I want to say? Oh, I wanted to ask a question about in my driving around, looking at some of these houses. I happened to drive past the Maharaja's house there on Heliotrope and Santa Clara. And sadly, the folks that own that house, unfortunately, don't seem to fully appreciate the resource that they own. I noticed the latest degradation is they've installed a giant man on horseback statue in the front yard. This is to go with their, what looks like could be a cemetery garden, forest lawn, which is at the other end of the property. I just wonder do we not have any resources to sort of rein in some of that kind of degradation such that, I mean, this house is a landmark and was a landmark in town long before we ever had a historical commission. And it's just, it's kind of unfortunate. Also, I happened to drive past I believe it was 2022 North Heliotrope. Anyway, it's a new build. I don't know. I do remember that when I drove past it, I said, yeah, I remember that coming before us. But boy, it sure looks different than it did in the drawings. You familiar with that house, Ed? I think it's 2022 Heliotrope. It's on the west side of the street.
Hey, that's the house that you said to the owner that you did a shitty job.
I did. Who did?
I did.
I actually had met the owner, said, Jesus, building is good.
In my defense, I thought it was the contractors.
Yeah, that's a good lesson for staff to drive by that property and see. Here's a house that was approved. In my view, it doesn't really fit in with the neighborhood. It's just not. It just is not well designed. But anyway, the other question I have, and this sort of came up tangentially this evening, and that is, what are we doing with regard to auditing the people who are on, have a MILSAC contract? I believe that is now a requirement and has been for at least 2 years for the state of California. And I'll bet we would find some pretty interesting things if we went out and audited all the people in the city who have a MILSAC contract. Are we making any effort to contract with an organization or something to do that, or?
My historic understanding of the historical that there has not been the city's practice to conduct inspection, but there are inspection options, and we are looking at making that a standard practice as we move forward as part of our enhancing of enforcement and implementation of the historical resources that we do have, and as part of the MILS Act.
It was my understanding that state law mandated that as of at least 2 years ago. Is that not correct?
Maybe the staff can help me out.
As my dear old dad used to say, as long departed, you can expect what you inspect.
That's correct, Commissioner Rush. There is a state law that mandates, I believe, every 5 years to do an inspection of those properties. We currently have over 300 properties on the MILSAC list now. Don't have the staff resources. It is on our objectives for future HRC, I guess, to-dos to come into compliance. Cities like Orange and Anaheim subsidize the hiring of a consultant to help them with the inspection. So that's how they manage to do that every couple of years. We don't have the monies or the staff resources, but we are aware of it, and we are in hopes of coming into compliance with that state law.
Just a question on that. Doesn't Orange require when they go through and do that inspection?
They do.
charge the homeowner a certain amount of dollars, like $100. You research that.
I don't think so.
They're not getting any charge. I mean, that's could be brought into play. It's just simple charge. Something is just going to offset some of the costs, not all of them, maybe. Some of them.
Yeah, I think that might be a little bit counterintuitive to the agency's recent goals of trying to make it a little bit more affordable, dropping the listing and dropping the Mills Act fees. But certainly it's something that we'd be willing to research and kind of bring back to the commission if that's their direction.
I'm saying no to the comment.
Okay. Okay. Commissioner Carter?
Yeah. Yeah, one of my concerns, and then I have to go very long, one of my concerns is I see these homes like the one we saw tonight. That are expanded extensively. And my concern is at what point does, even though they're meeting the criteria for the design and design features and materials, at what point does the house no longer become that house, if I'm making myself clear? That's just a concern I have, because some of these houses are so heavily modified. Internally, I can understand because they're trying to update and all that kind of thing, but externally, they keep adding to them, adding variety of things to the property and all that. And my concern is, again, at what point does that house really become a different home? So that's one of my comments. Yeah, that's really my only comment. Thank you.
Commissioner Sarmiento.
Still on the line. Commissioner Sarmiento, you are muted. We can try coming back to her chair. She is on the line. She is just muted.
Okay. Commissioner Harvey.
I'd like to congratulate Mr. Rush. He's our new chair. And new vice chair. I want to thank Alberta for being our fearless leader. And congratulate all of our applicants on their new status, their properties. I do have something I want to bring up. Working and serving and worrying and asking questions about the listed property, the Cypress Fire Station. It's got me thinking real hard about the United Auto Building that some people know as Original Mike. I've heard that it has a new owner. I've heard that it's not going to open up again. That's the business that once was. I know there's been many proposals for the parts of that property that have been in the works. I'd like to know the status of that, if that's appropriate. And just the status of the building and who owns it and where they're going with it and how is it possible to steer them in a direction where we'll be able to maintain that historic asset. So I don't know what's appropriate, what we can ask, what we can find out, but anything that we can learn that's appropriate and build on that and maybe work with the owner, whoever it is. And if it is indeed going to sit vacant, we need to really consider what's going to happen with that property and make sure that it gets secured appropriately right away and much better than any of our other historic properties that we have lost or are in loss. So that's what I think.
It's Commissioner Sarmiento on the line.
Yeah. You guys can hear me, yes, for public comment? I mean, for my commissioner comment. I want to congratulate Chair Rush and our new Vice Chair Marashi. I'm excited to embark on this new South Main History Project, and I look forward to seeing more historic overlays in other parts of our city. We have a very historic city. I think we have a lot of great opportunities to really revive our neighborhood history, even along the trolley route and other development focused areas. I also wanted to just get the word out that the Art Commission has issued a call for public art for South Main development, for the South Main revitalization project. And we ask that historic considerations be prioritized. So on the Art Commission website for that call for RFPs for public art, you'll see a wonderful short list of some wonderful South Main history, everything from the Righteous Brothers to Marlon Brando and other significant structures. So we hope to just expand the consciousness of the history that we do have on South Main. As Commissioner Hardy had mentioned, we have the original Mike's building. We have the Cypress Street Fire Station. We have a lot of wonderful structures and locations and people that really have not just formed a part of our city history, but have contributed to global arts history, arts and culture history. So I'm really excited to celebrate those aspects of our collective history and also just help preserve the structures that we have, like Cypress Street Station. And I hope to get guidance on how to really transform it into a wonderful public asset. Thank you.
Okay.
Commissioner Marashi.
First of all, I want to thank your staff, and it's been fantastic, especially this First American. It really is a win for both the city and for historic preservation. I really appreciate the hard work you put in. I also want to welcome the new plant manager. And finally, I want to thank our Madam Chair Christie for an outstanding years of service. You've been instrumental in doing a lot of things for us. For example, not only in presentations at city council meetings, but also the wonderful booth we had at the city anniversary, things like that. You've been a phenomenal leader. Thank you. Congratulations to Commissioner Rush. Thank you, everybody, for my part. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me. I wanted to give you a quick update on Floral Park. We didn't quite make the, we're trying to become a historic district. We didn't quite meet the city's July 30th meeting. Hopefully the one in September will be there. By the way, if you ever want to see presentations like what we see from Lee and Pedro and everybody else, tune in to CalSpan on the 30th at 9 o'clock in the morning, July 30th, CalSpan. You can watch the presentations of the state historical properties. One of the closest ones that they're going to be doing is over here in Orange. It's the Consolidated Orange Growers Creek Cooling Ice Plant. So they're going to put that into the national register. So that's going to be something to watch.
Would you mind sending that to Sarah?
Absolutely. Glad to. Let's see. Also, I wanted to point out, if you're interested in history, one of the things is our newsletter. By the way, it was voted the #1 best newsletter in America for the year by the Association. So check that out. You can check that out at floralpark.com. If you check on floralpark.com and then click on the history tab, we have a whole bunch of new articles that you can read. One of the latest ones is Early Architecture of Floral Park, Craftsman Bungalows. So there's a series of probably half a dozen new articles that we read. So get your history for there. And one of the things also, last but not least, one of the things I wanted to point out is when it came time to do the budget, Councilman Lopez called me up and she says, hey, is there anything we need as far as the Historic Resource Commission and historic things that we put in the budget? And so that really got me to thinking. So I did a survey of what all the other cities in Orange County are doing. I went through all their websites, read everything, made a little nice Excel spreadsheet of all the stuff. And I really have got to congratulate this city. We are doing one of the best, we are like the best of all the cities. And I have the data to prove it. And I just want to say that, you know, we're doing a fantastic job as a historic preservation of the city. A couple of little things that I saw were kind of cool that other ones were doing. The city of Orangeburg, or Anaheim, for example, they videotape. They have a little video of all the homes that make the historic registry for the year. So they put out one video every year. It's just like a quick tour of the homes. And that's out there on YouTube for people to check out and also on the city website. Also, they list the projects that they are looking to do that year, and then they list the projects that they wind up finishing. So one of the things that one of the cities did was they painted historical murals on a lot of the utility boxes to tell about the history of the city. So that was kind of cool. Other than that, we are the top. So congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I want to thank you all, and especially staff, because this agenda tonight, man, that was a lot of work that you have to do. Let's just staff it. And coming on, because I tell you, without you and all of the write-up that you do, you know, it triggers questions when the applicants come up before us that we have, and especially with some of the ones that we have coming for us tonight. So thank you so much. And what I'd like to say is follow up. In 2018 and 2019, we had several homes that we graciously put them on the register or the Mills Act during that time, you know, to give them that benefit at the end of the year, subject to. And the one that comes quick on mind, I think, is on Flower Street with the two ladies that were there that had, I mean, they took care of their back, but the front was a disaster whatsoever. So, staff, could you please give us a follow-up? I'm not saying in September or anything, but just to let you know that they did comply, you know, with the conditions that we did, you know, grant them, you know, status on our register. And, you know, like I said, gave them a big benefit at the end of the year. So if you could come back with that, okay. And I just want to remind everyone that you got this for the 2021. I have a hard time doing 2021 for some reason. Historic preservation award. So this is a good time to come to the neighborhoods or tell your friends, put it out to the neighborhood association on the two awards, one for rehabilitation and one for restoration. And I did get comments back from Tom Morrissey, who emailed me and said that the San Antonio Unified School District, and when we got the restoration for the Pacific Electric one, went all the way to state. And they were, you know, they were given an award for that particular project.
I think it was the governor.
Wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we should be very, very, I know the Unified School District was very, very proud, you know, because we know that when Assistant Superintendent Warren Glenville, we thank you. Well, it really meant something to me. And Executive Director Men, would you please keep me in the loop with life? Because I am getting called to drill with that project to help them, you know, keep their historic designation of landmark on that, and also to meet whatever their needs. Would you please? She is working with historic preservation architect and getting that. Okay, so if you keep me moving, that would really appreciate it. And once again, I would like to thank you. It's been a pleasure serving, you know, as your chair on this commission. Commission. I'm so proud we did it in getting those fees down, you know, we worked as a team, which was, you know, you just don't know. That's making an impact, and we got more properties that should be on the list and reaching out. So I want to thank you. It's been a privilege serving as your chair, and congratulations, Kim Rush and everyone. And with that, I'd like to move that our next regular scheduled meeting for the Historic Resource Commission is scheduled for Thursday, September 2nd, 2021 at 4. I move. Is there a second? Commissioner Barlow, roll call, please.
Roll call, Commissioner Carpenter,
Yes.
Commissioner Hart,
Yes.
Commissioner Marashi,
Yes.
Commissioner Candace,
Yes.
McLaughlin,
Aye.
Vice Chair Rush, Chair Casey.
Aye. And with that, I adjourn the meeting at 7:53 PM.
Thank you.
Probably should stop sharing.
Thanks.
You can leave this, right?
Yeah, the computer. Oh, you can add that, yeah.